like to call to order the Town Council regular session at 7:33, and it's Monday, November 28th. If you could stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Dale, could we have the roll call, please? Present.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Thank you, Dale. We have the approval of the minutes of previous meetings. We have the work sessions of November 2nd and November 14th.
Move approval of the minutes from the work sessions November 2nd and November 14th, 2011, and the November 2nd as amended. Ella, I believe you had a change in the comments from Mr. Ladero.
Second.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Polly. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. We also have the regular session from November 14th, 2011.
I move approval of the regular session of minutes for November 2nd, November 14th, 2011.
Second.
We have motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Would any town council member request anything removed from the consent agenda?
Okay, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Which brings us to licenses. We have a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the Rock SK 5K road race on Saturday, June 2nd, 2012, at 10 o'clock a.m. to the South Kingstown High School Parent-Teacher Group, 215 Columbia Street, Wakefield, Rhode Island, subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town, issuance of a certificate of insurance naming the town as an additional insured in the amount specified by the risk manager, and Rhode Island Department of Transportation approval. Application by Mary Kutcher. And is Mary here with us tonight? Welcome, Mary. If you could tell us a little bit about the race, that would be great.
Okay, this is, it's put on by the parent-teacher group for the high school, and the idea is to provide a venue to showcase the many local bands that we have at the high school, the student bands. It's not just the high school bands, but their own personal private bands that they've formed outside of school. And all kinds of music, not just rock. We're going to have a cappella groups and quartets and whoever wants to do it along the whole race route. So that's why it's Rock SK 5K.
That's great. Questions here at the table?
Do you have any idea how many bands you'll have involved in this?
I know that we have Battle of the Bands every year, and there's 7 or 8 bands that participate, but I think we'll probably have more than that because those are usually just the rock bands. But we'll have other groups too. So I'm going to start advertising for them in the spring and setting them up where they're going to be placed on the route. So hopefully find places along Main Street that will allow the bands that need electricity to plug in, and the others that don't, find different spots for them.
Sounds exciting.
Yes, it sounds like great fun.
Further questions here at the table?
And what's the entrance? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
I was
Kath.
going to say, is there entrance fee, and what is the money going to go to?
Yeah, it's going to go to the PTG, but we're going to try to make it affordable as a family event and also for students. So once I get all the information as to how much it's going to cost for the timing and the shirts, but we're thinking about $20 for an adult, $15 for students, and $10 for 13 and under. That way if you had, some younger kids and you all wanted to run together, and it's going to be a walk too, so run or walk. It should be economical for them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's great. Jim? And then Carol?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the route and where the kids were going to be able to plug in for all of their equipment.
I haven't checked that out yet. If there aren't locations, then they'll have to play unplugged but we'll see if we can find some businesses that are willing to provide some outlets for them.
All right, but the route at the moment, you're using Main Street?
It's going to start at the high school.
Yep.
And go down towards Columbia, then down Columbia, then all the way down Main Street to High Street, and take a right on High Street, and then they have to go up Highland Ave a little bit, up that hill, just to make it a 5K, and then they wrap back down, and then the rest of the way up High Street, take a right on Church, all the way down Church to Branch, take a left, right on Branch, and then back up to the high school, so it makes a loop. So it'll start and end at the high school.
Thank you.
Carol?
I'm all set.
And is this in coordination too, working with the music department for some of their?
I haven't specifically spoken to them yet. I wanted to get a lot of the students that do their own outside private bands to encourage them to do that because they do that on their own time. But I'm sure the high school music groups will be part of it, maybe at the start and finish as well.
It's a great idea. We wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, I'm going to need it.
I
Thanks for
move
doing it.
approval of new license A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Next, under License B, we have a resolution to defer consideration of license items 6C through 6F until completion of the public hearings. So at this time, I'm going to move to public hearing A.
We
This-
might want to make a motion.
Do we need a
You want to just
vote?
vote on the deferral?
I
Do
make
you
a
want a
motion
motion?
to approve new business, license B.
Second.
We have motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Which brings us to public hearing A. I'd like to open this public hearing. This is a public hearing relative to the renewal of liquor license for the year beginning December 1st, 2011. Said licenses are granted contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of good standing from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees and arrears to the town, and the correction of any fire code violations. Application for licenses to sell intoxicating beverages under the provision of Title III of the General Laws of 1956, as amended, have been filed at this office as follows. And this is Class B victula. It's Apple New England LLC, doing business as Applebee's Neighborhood Grill and Bar, 15 Commons Corner Way, Wakefield, Rhode Island, by Ronald Agarashi, Secretary for the Bar Lounge area, all dining areas and the patio area, and as further defined in a site plan on file in the town's clerk's office. So we'll start, and then we'll move on to Kachina Twist, Kingston Road, Wakefield, Rhode Island, by Michael Mara, Administrator of the estate of Stephen Mara, for the first floor dining room, lounge, and bar areas, subject to issuance of the liquor license transferred, granted July 25th, 2011, prior to December 1st, 2011, and is further defined in a site plan on file in the town clerk's office. So at this time, shall I turn it over to Andy? Or do we want to?
Actually, unless Dale has any correspondence, we would go right to the public hearing to see if anyone's here representing the applicants.
Anyone representing Applebee's? No? Anyone representing Kachina Twist?
Why don't we see if there is anyone in the public who want to comment on either of these renewals?
If you have any comments, if you could come to the mic and state your name. Any questions here at the table? Jim?
Yeah, Mike, these, both of these are renewals, correct?
Correct.
And Apple New England is up to date with everything the town hall needs, but how about Kachina Twist?
All right, Dale, can you answer that?
Applebee's is all set. Their transfer was issued earlier this month, and we've received their certificate of good standing. Cucina Twist, we have not received a certificate of good standing for the transfer. Should we not receive that by 4:30 on November 30th, this renewal would not go through. Cucina Twist would have to close, and they would have to come back and request another Class B victular license from you.
And you've been in touch with the principals?
Yes, we've been in touch with Michael Mara, who is the administrator of the estate of Stephen Mara. He was in our office today. We are working with him and the Division of Taxation to try to get this cleared up by Wednesday afternoon.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Last time for any comments during the public hearing? Can I have a motion?
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention? Motion carries 500, which now brings us back to,
Now you're going to vote
Vote.
on both of those renewals.
so license C and D.
That would be public, a vote on how you
The
want to
public
handle
hearing.
public hearing A.
Do we have a motion?
I move approval of public hearing A.
Second.
And Carol, just so that we
Should read
know, attached to that motion is going to be the language that Dale has in her November 23rd memo, contingent upon the issuance of certificate of good standing from Rhode Island Division of Taxation, compliance with all town ordinances and regs, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees, and the correction of any fire code violations. So your approval motion will include that language, is that?
That's correct. That motion includes that language.
Great.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500, which now brings us back to license C.
Correct.
This is a resolution granting a victualling license for the year beginning December 1st, 2011 to Apple New England, Applebee's Neighborhood Grill and Bar, 15 Commons Corner Way, Wakefield, application by Ronald Igarashi, Secretary. And can we box these both together, C and D?
Sure you can.
And the resolution for Kachina Twist. Do we have a motion?
I move approval of new licenses C and D.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Which brings us to public hearing B. This is a public hearing relative to an application for a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingstown in accordance with the general laws of 1956 as amended as follows. Class A retail liquor license. Application for a Class A retail liquor license by Village Liquors, LLC, doing business as Village Liquors, 50 South County Commons Way, Wakefield, Rhode Island, by Susan Pagliarini, member for Unit E1 of Building Number 6 in accordance with an amendment to the 1998 Master Plan for the Village of South County Commons, granted July 12, 2011 by the Planning Board, and a special use permit granted August 17, 2011 by the Zoning Board of Review, and is further defined in a site plan on file in the Town Clerk's office. Said license is contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of good standing from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees and arrears to the town, and the correction of any fire code violations. So at this time, Dale has a communication.
Yes, I have one communication, and a communication dated October 21st, 2011, in reference to the Class A liquor license by Village Liquors LLC applicant from Larry Fish, the chair of the South Kingston Economic Development Committee, and he is endorsing and supporting this license.
Thank you, Dale. At this time, are there any questions here at the table before I open it to the public? Okay. This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this public hearing B, if you could come to the microphone. Welcome.
Thank you. Madam President, for the record, Attorney John A. Pagliarini, Jr., LaPlante Soa Goldman, 67 Cedar Street, Providence, Rhode Island. Representing the applicant, Village Liquors, LLC, and in full disclosure, as previously presented to this council, husband of the applicant.
Welcome.
Thank you. We have embarked on a very lengthy process since your April 11th town council meeting. At that time was the publishing of the census data in March of this year showed that the town passed the magic 30,000 population number, and a fifth Class A liquor license would become available based on state law, subject to your approval. Since that time, we have made presentation to the planning board and received unanimous approval through the planning board. We made application to the zoning board of review and received unanimous decision for a special use permit that is required by your liquor ordinance. And we also presented before your Economic Development Committee and received unanimous support from them. Very telling is that none of those three public hearings, each advertised, green card notice, publicized in the newspaper, not one person stood up against these applications. There were residents who stood in favor of this application at those hearings. Each council member should have a copy of our application packet, which was included several decisions, all the required documentation, and then we provided extra information for the council's review. Without objection, since you have a copy, I would like to give the stenographer a copy to mark as Exhibit 1 so that the record will contain.
Can I-
Mr. Pagliarini, do you have a copy for the clerk, or do you have exactly what he handed to the stenographer? I don't know. Fine. Okay, we just want to take a look at it.
What was the date of that we received that, Mike? Do you know?
23rd, 2011?
August 23rd?
23rd.
Yes. In that packet, it will show that the applicant, beyond the requirements, has provided to the town council a copy of her E-TIPS off-premises certification. She has successfully completed the course to sell alcohol at a liquor store, not to serve at a bar, but to sell at a liquor store. There's also a letter in there from an insurance agent saying that she is qualified to get liquor liability insurance, which many liquor stores do not carry. Additionally, there is a packet from our architect that shows the proposed layout that was given to the planning and zoning boards. It shows the proposed signage on the building, and everything has been found to be in conformance with your regulations. Available this evening, should you have any questions, are our engineer, our architect, and our insurance agent. They are all here this evening. Why was this site chosen? And if I could ask the engineer to put up the site map. The center, the South County Commons was previously approved by a previous town council, and one of the uses that they allow is a liquor store by special use permit. What that tells us is that a liquor store was contemplated. Otherwise, it would have been a prohibited use, because there are many, many prohibited uses in the Commons. But at the time of the inception of this development, the council that approved it did allow for a special use permit for a liquor store, a Class A store. Kevin? Can you put up the color map? What we asked Dupree Engineering to do was to secure the town GIS database, and there are 3 zones that a liquor store, a Class A liquor store, is permissible in town. The applicant drove the town, knowing that she wanted to locate here, and said, what is the best location that we could find? Reasonableness was to draw a half-mile perimeter circle around the 4 existing liquor stores. Since it went public that the application was in process, we've received numerous telephone calls from landlords saying, I've got a vacant building. There's quite a few of those. Each building was rejected, and the predominant reason was proximity to other liquor stores. Now, the applicant chose a half a mile as her radius. State law dictates that you cannot put a liquor store within 200 feet of another liquor store. So she has chosen 2,600 feet as her radius. Outside of that radius, it really leaves us but two places in the town that a Class A liquor store could be sited. The first site is on Kingston Road, what we call the gateway to the University of Rhode Island. There was an available space next to the pizza parlor at the time that this began. That space was rejected for several reasons. One, it's not the applicant's desire nor business model to attract the university crowd. Secondly, it truly does abut a residential area there to the point where there's one or two school bus stops in that permitted node, and that's not something that the applicant wanted to do. Which left us with South County Commons. We approached the owner and their representatives. We laid out the plan. The vision for the store, as proposed, is a 1,742 square foot wine shop. It is not the business model based on the square footage. It's not going to be the place to go buy your keg of beer. It is not going to be the place where there's 1,000 cases of aluminum cans on the floor. We physically can't handle that at this space. The clientele or the vision is more of the dinner party crowd. I'm not going to say that the applicant wants an upscale wine store, but the applicant wants a wine shop. The store itself, many liquor stores that you visit throughout the state are very cluttered. They're not friendly to the consumer. The vision here is to make this a very customized store that uses technology that makes it very user-friendly. This store is proposing a very high security system within the facility to include digital license scanners. We are concerned that there is a university in this community, and not wishing to have any problems, the applicant has researched, like they do in the town of North Kingstown. The liquor stores received grant money for scanners that scan driver's licenses and give you the information that's encoded on the back. That will be implemented in this store. We have met with the South Kingstown Police Department. They're unaware if this technology exists anywhere else in the town, but it is designed for this particular establishment if approved. So when the applicant came to the location, we met with the owner of South County Commons. They embraced the application for a variety of reasons because they felt it complements the Commons. The Commons just isn't a South Kingstown shopping plaza. It is a regional destination. The applicant who resides in East Greenwich goes into the Commons and does restaurants, shopping, etc. Many other persons come down from local communities. It's not just for people who live in Wakefield to drive into the Commons. It is a destination. And having a Class A liquor store that concentrates on wine, the thought process is that folks will come down to the regional shopping plaza, as was contemplated by the previous town council that developed the Commons. There's been a lot said about this application. In April, a letter was given to this council saying, bad economy, don't need competition. Here we are, we're before you. It's your decision to make. The question comes down to, is South Kingstown open for business or not? Somebody who is a ready, willing applicant, who has gone through all the processes that you have laid before it and been unanimously supported at each step, stands before you this evening and says, I would like to open this business and employ and create jobs. There was discussion in April about where this license could end up. If I was one of the other 4 Class A liquor stores, this is the one store I would support. 1,742 square feet, cannot expand without going through the entire process again, planning, zoning, etc. Because the approvals given are site-specific to that 1,742 square foot unit. Any expansion, public hearings all over again. It's located in an area that basically rolls up the sidewalks a lot earlier than they roll up their sidewalks. The vision of this store, hours of operation, legally could be 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., in the summer 7 to 11. Realistically, it could be 10 to 8 in this location because it's a wine shop and there usually aren't too many wine emergencies at 9:30 at night. So the business model is in fitting with the commons, which is, but for the restaurants, pretty much closed up by 8 p.m. at night. So from a competitive perspective, I think this is the least that anybody else could apply for. There was confusion in the past about transferring the license to somebody else. Could the applicant get the license and then transfer it to somebody who builds the mega liquor depot and blows out the other 4 stores and puts them out of business? The council is the arbiter of that fact. There are 2 things that are before this council when a license is transferred, and that is it transferred to somebody who buys the applicant's license and steps in their shoes, or is it relocated to a different destination? And there's different standards in your liquor ordinance, and you have complete say if a license is transferred to a different location. So I ask that the council contemplate the difference between a transfer and a relocation. What the applicant can offer to you is that it's not binding on this license, but the lease that they have negotiated with the owners of the property says she has the right to transfer her license, but she can never relocate it from the commons. So that is an independent negotiation that has occurred with the landlord. The landlord embraces a liquor store in their development because they understand it's going to help their other tenants. So Village Liquors can transfer their license to another entity at some point 10 years from now, but they can never transfer it off-site or be in violation of their lease with the landlord and the remedies that the landlord would have available to them. I'd like to enter into the record a few other exhibits at this time, just for the record. The first is a copy of the transcript from the zoning decision, the public hearing that was held at that time. I'd like that it be entered in as Exhibit 2.
Can I ask a question here? Mike, do we have to enter these as exhibits when we have not heard the testimony?
No, he's simply saying that they're his statements that he's putting into the record. You're not voting on whether or not they're the applicant's exhibits.
Okay.
And then lastly, what I'd ask to be marked as Exhibit 3 This is a copy of your October 24th, 2011 agenda. The reason that I'm introducing the October 24th agenda is that there's a very nice analysis by your planning department under your growth management ordinance about the census data. And there's concerns that there is no need for an additional liquor store in town because the only reason you went over 30,000 in population is due to the University of Rhode Island. Well, your own information in there dispels that theory. In the late 80s, when I attended the University of Rhode Island and got my business degree, they basically told me that a statistic can say anything you want it to say. In 1999, when I attended the University of Rhode Island and got my master's degree in community planning, I found out how to make those numbers say what I wanted them to say. What's missing there is in 2000, there were 4,180 students living on campus. In 2010, there's 5,562. Well, the dormitories were doing a major rehabilitation in 2000, and over 1,000 students were displaced. Because if you look at the 1990 census data, there was 5,254 students on campus. So over a 20-year period of 90 to 2010, there's only an additional 308 students on campus for the cohort of living quarters. Additionally, the discussion goes in on how there's 13,218 residential dwelling units in the town of South Kingstown as a total. And the census found that 2,902 are vacant. 22% of the houses in the town of South Kingstown are vacant. This has been raised in the newspaper by town officials as inaccurate, that there's no way that 1 out of every 5 houses in this town is vacant. And that is being done under the redistricting plan. Those comments are in the newspaper because you're losing potential representation for an undercount in population due to vacancies when possibly it's because your snowbirds were in Florida and didn't fill out the census. So we really can't have it both ways. Anybody who argues that the census due to URI, it's really a red herring. The University of Rhode Island has had minimal effect on the population, and the fact of the matter is 22% of your units are not vacant in this town. So more than likely, your population has been undercounted rather than overcounted. In conclusion, there is the potential for a license that's available based on census data. Your planning board and zoning board are charged with ferreting out all the issues. Is it a good location, hours, everything, parking, etc. They've done that. Again, nobody objected. Those appeal periods have closed. That was the time to object for whatever grounds. The applicant has met the standard of your liquor ordinance. And then the realist in me says, for 8 months, the property owner has endured a very lengthy process and not collected any rent in this unit. This unit cannot be rented to anybody because the planning and zoning approvals are for this unit. For 8 months, they have held this unit open for this hearing tonight. It would be unfair to continue this any further into the future because a decision would have to be made on whether or not a property owner should have to keep a unit open for how much longer. There's a question about the process. When I stood before you on April 11th, the comment was, at this time, we don't want to issue the fifth license. However, at anybody's peril, they can proceed. The applicant proceeded at her peril, a very costly proposition. Anybody else, and the discussion was lively at the Economic Development Committee meeting, because the question was whether or not a process should be opened up once you said, okay, the license is available. And your Economic Development Committee is made up of business people, and I would proffer savvy business persons on that committee. And the discussion became, if you wanted to put a liquor store in, where have you been for the last 8 months? And your process, even though there was no official process, was there. And it's not just that the applicant was the only one who availed themselves to it, because as we know, as of 2 or 3 weeks ago, there's a second application that has quite the journey ahead of it. And they're subject to appeals at every step of the way now. So there was a process. Was it a defined process? Was it a free-for-all? There was a process. And it was the town of South Kingstown hit the magic number, a fifth license is available, and if you really wanted that license, you should have applied for it. So Village Liquors stands before you this evening, having satisfied every hurdle, every requirement that was given in the liquor ordinance, and they have satisfactorily and unanimously crossed each and every bridge and leapt over every hurdle, and they're before you this evening, asking that you issue this license to them this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments from the public? Please come forward.
Merlin O'Keefe, attorney at law representing Denunzi Package Store and Sweeney's Wine and Liquors as well. Before I start with what I had planned to present to you, let me address some of the things that Mr. Pagliarini raised, which I don't want to go any further. He had said that the decision of the EDC was unanimous. Well, not exactly. There were 9 members, 2 were absent, and 1 didn't vote, according to what I've read. And it's interesting, EDC said it was a benefit to the town, certainly a benefit to the Pagliarinis, but it never detailed what the benefit to the town was. There are no findings of fact. It's totally conclusory in terms of the letter I saw from Mr. Fish in your file. And Mr. Pagliarini seeks some solace in the decisions of the Planning Board and the Zoning Board. As you read those decisions, both of those decisions say we are extremely limited as what is before us to decide. They did not pass on the heavy issue here. The heavy issue is temperance and the need for a 5th liquor license, which is squarely on you to decide. Mr. Pagliarini had also said that the scanners for IDs were something new. Well, they weren't new when I was here probably 5 years ago before a council that Mr. O'Neill was on and Mrs. Fogarty was on, when there was an issue about IDs being presented to Patsy's Liquor Store. And that was discussed, and the chief was part of those discussions, as I recall. Rhode Island general laws is what gets us here. And it allows you, it doesn't require you to, and leaves it just about totally to your discretion to award or to authorize a 5th liquor license based on population. And Mr. Pagliarini criticizes the figures there, the URI figures. It's the census that drives us. I think it's a lousy index for liquor license use, but that's what the general laws say. That's what we have to use, and whether we like it or not, the beef is not with the town council in South Kingston, but rather with the U.S. Census Department. And it's interesting on those figures in the census, and it's really consumer driven because the Rhode Island general laws, because they say if you get 6,000, you can get another license. They want the people to be adequately served. And curiously, on this jump in the census, if you assume that 18, freshmen's 18, sophomores 19, juniors 20, that would be 3/4 of the people that would be underage and not consumers. I agree it's a lousy index, but that's what we're stuck with. And to bandy about numbers, the snowbirds versus the summer people, is not, it doesn't change what the index is. And as to summer influx, there isn't that much that I know of, because it occurs mostly in East Mattoonic and Mattoonic and not elsewhere. If you'll bear with me a second. And it seems, as we're here, that the lifting on the caps and the Class A application are getting melded into one. And I would ask that my arguments and what I say here as to the Class A also carry over to the authorization. Starting on 11/19, a petition was laid on the counters of the liquor stores, or at least 4 of them in town. At least 3 of them in town. I'm not sure on the 4th. There was a 4th, excuse me. And I would present to the clerk approximately 400 signatures of town residents who, the heading is "Propose another liquor store in our town." And these were gathered by each of the current licensees. If I may present them to the clerk.
Exhibit A, opponents A.
And that would be on behalf of both Mr. Denunci and Mr. Sweeney, who are incidentally both here with their families. There's more than one vacancy up at the South County Commons. I was there today to say that this is being held open. Who knows? And we talk about a lease and the untransferability in the lease. I think everybody on this panel and everybody in this room knows that leases can be amended for consideration. If you want to do something, you should do it and not rely on a lease, because they can be amended as so many of them have been over time. As I understand, one of the rules of the Class A liquor license is you have to store the liquor on the premises that you're going to be used for consumption. You can't store it off-site. And this is a tiny store. I don't know whether it has a basement or not. That has not been presented to you. But the floor plan of it is very small. And I was up there today, and it's, if you would, it's when you go into the Commons in the main entryway. It's a building on your left. It's the last unit, which is on a corner facing a small street. There are 5 spaces in front of that store and the adjacent store. One of them is dedicated to handicap parking, and on the side street, there are 4 spaces on one side of the street and 4 on the other. There is no real parking there to speak of. It's also right next to the Sylvan Learning Center, which is a school. Well, it's not exactly a school. It's for school age. It's a supplement to learning for school age children. One of the things I would also like to make as a representation to you is that this is a location, and one of the things in your ordinances or your rules and regulations is a traffic analysis. There was none given here that I know of. No engineers testified. I was online today, and I was in touch with DOT of the state of Rhode Island, and they were good enough to email a report that considers the top 50 intersections in Rhode Island exhibiting the greatest needs based on accidents and the impact. And that report lists the 6th intersection in Rhode Island as exhibiting the greatest need as South Kingston at the South County Commons Way on Tower Hill Road. And may I present that as an exhibit as well? Any of us who've driven there know it's not an easy place to get in and out. In this extremely competitive market, Mr. Sweeney's here, and Mr. Sweeney will testify that a major capital investment on his part is into the license, and the other licenses are of similar value to his, way upwards of $100,000. And, you know, Mr. Sweeney and Mr. D'Annunzio are all for competition, but in this day and age, it's awfully unfair to hand someone for $1,000, which is the filing fee, and $50, and then be able to compete with Mr. Sweeney and Mr. D'Annunzio, as well as the others in town who maintain their license. There was also a for rent sign on those premises today, which the applicant has targeted as the place he wishes to do business. The Pagliarini interests have proceeded at their own peril, as they were told. They have no claim here. And there is, while your discretion is largely unfettered, I would ask you to deny the application substantively for the Class A, also as time goes on to increase the cap, but also procedurally, because there's a principle in Rhode Island called the principle of administrative finality. And what it requires of those who appear before our bodies and our administrative agencies is to put their best foot forward. And what happened, Mr. Pagliarini evidently applied to have the cap increased in April, and absent a material change in circumstances, he's back here again, putting you through the same drill. You've decided, you've spoken your mind. I would ask that a separate ground for the denial be on that procedural basis. The case is Audette versus Coletti. It's a Rhode Island Supreme Court case which spoke to that particular issue. One of the other things that you look for in your licenses is the public support or public interest in it. I have in my hands a letter from Eileen Stone. Ms. Stone is the coordinator for the South Kingston Partnership for Prevention. I spoke with her today, and she was good enough to email this to me. I got it at 5 o'clock or so, 4:37 she emailed it to me. And if I can read just a quick word of it. The South Kingston Partnership for Prevention is not in favor of the town council voting to increase the number of package store licenses from 4 to 5. The SKPD takes a comprehensive approach to reducing excessive drinking and related health consequences. SKPD has established a good working relationship with the liquor vendors in our community, but the SKPD would not be supportive of an additional liquor store. And goes on to state several further reasons. I'd ask that this be marked as an exhibit as well. And I understand that Councilmember Fogarty also serves on that partnership as the ex-officio.
That's opponent C.
That would, for the time being, that would conclude my brief presentation. Mr. Sweeney would like to address you. Mr. D'Annunzio is available for questions, but does not.
Point of order, Madam President. Procedurally, at what point would you like me to rebut or object to certain statements made? After each individual at the end, how would you like me to handle this procedure?
If you could let them finish, and then I'm going to bring it back to any questions at the table, and then you can come back up to the mic. You're welcome.
Tell her about your business, Mr. Sweeney.
Okay, my name's Mike Sweeney. I'm the owner of Sweeney Wine and Spirits, which is 408 Main Street, Wakefield. I also live at 120 River Heights Drive in Wakefield, Rhode Island. I've owned my store for about 11 years now. Prior to that, I was a liquor wholesaler in Rhode Island, calling on all South County stores and restaurants. Mr. Pagliarini has made very interesting points about his wife going to tips class. Every employee who works at my store or in any other store in this town is required to do that. So, and other than that, I don't understand what her history in selling wine is. It took me well over 15 years to learn what I know now, which is about that much. The other 4 stores in this town are all families who've been in this business for 20 years plus. They all grew up in it. I've learned a lot from them. This is a great area to run a business. Mr. Pagliarini is saying that he has a quaint idea of a store they like to put in the Commons. I can't believe I'm actually going to say this, but compared to Wakefield Liquors, which is Market Watch rated national magazine for our business, I'm actually tooting my competition's horn here. She is rated as one of the highest liquor stores in New England. Mr. Pagliarini's wife, who I have no idea what she knows about wine, cannot even come close to the years of hard work we've all put into our businesses. As far as competition goes, for most of you know, we have the 4 stores in our regular town. We have 4 stores to the east of us. We have Schwabies in the south. We have O'Neill's in the middle, in Narragansett, and the Pear. We have Bonnet to the north. Northwest of South Kingston, we have another fine liquor store, Wolf Rocks. To the west of South Kingston, not even 10 miles by a crow flies, we have Rippy's. And to the south, we have a brand new, beautiful wine shop in Charleston. I mean, there's a lot of competition in this town for wine and spirits being procured. I don't understand why everybody says a good license, a new job for the town is a great thing. Right now, the way our business is going, and since December of 2007, when the giant recession hit, we have taken a pounding year after year. I'm at the point where I pay 2 or 3 people in my store adult wages, real jobs for real people, and I'm holding on with nothing left pretty much. And if I take another 25 to 30% hit because of a new store comes in, because we deal in our business in a 3-tier system, which is like Budweiser sells to our wholesaler sells to us. To be competitive in our business, I have to buy at a certain level. And if you put another store in who's buying at this level or coming close, it knocks me out of the game, which allows the larger stores, which Wakefield Liquors is the largest in our area. She can handle a store like that. O'Neill's can, but me, guys like Gary are the small business guys in this town who couldn't handle another store. We're already holding on with what we have. And the other problem I have with all this is everybody says a job is a job, but I have real employees 2 of my employees, one's my sister, and one has been a kid who's been living in this town his whole life. And I pay him a living wage to live in this town, which is not an easy thing to do. So before you decide to add any of the licenses, please think about that you're really impacting real people in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Just Gary Denunci, Patsy's Package Store. My family's had the store for 70-some years, and everything that Mike said is true. I echo all his comments, and that's about it.
Thank you. Could we just open some questions here? Does anyone have any questions here for anyone at this time?
Can I?
Yeah.
I'd just like to know what the petition says. What was the wording on the petition with the, what was it, 300 or 400 signatures?
I think it was 400.
358, Madam Vice President. And the time of the petition was, I believe it started on the 19th. We had the holiday, so it was less than 10 days. And it's a strong showing for less than 10 days. And all of the people have their addresses next to their names, or mostly all of them.
Want me to read it?
Yeah, would you please?
Oppose another liquor store in our town. I oppose the town council of the town of South Kingstown issuing a 5th Class A retail liquor license to any applicant and support its April 25th, 2011 decision to not issue a 5th Class A retail liquor license. Having 5 liquor stores in such a small community is dangerous, threatens our quality of life, and fails to protect the economic interests of the 4 current holders of Class A liquor licenses, all of which support the local community and diligently enforce the liquor laws to protect South Kingstown and neighboring residents from abuse or misuse of alcoholic beverages.
Thank you.
Could I just ask how many people are employed at Patsy's?
Sorry?
How many people are employed at Patsy's? 3.
It's a family business. There's a cousin, David Denunzi, and other family members as well. They're all adults. There are no college kids working at that facility.
Thank you. Any further questions before I go back to the audience? Mic is open. Mr. Pagliarini, if you would like to come.
I think you should let this,
All right.
other people speak first.
I think we're going to let everyone speak and then give you it at the end, because there's maybe more that you want to address.
Thank you, President.
Welcome.
Attorney Keith Kyle on behalf of Wakefield Liquors. Some of my comments may be more geared towards subparagraph D of your agenda, but we also object to the issuance of the liquor license to Village Commons LLC. I adopt many of the arguments made by my brother counsel on behalf of the other 2 liquor stores, and my main arguments are 3, which I would like to lay out before you. The primary one, which Mr. O'Keefe already pointed out, is this notion of administrative finality, and the basis for that is set forth deep in our law based on fundamental fairness. And once a board issues a ruling, people in your community are entitled to rely upon that ruling. And I read your minutes from your April 25th, 2011 Town Council meeting, and this council unanimously rejected the resolution to amend the number of Class A liquor licenses from 4 to 5. So what has transpired in the past 7 months, I think, is the issue before all of you. And at least from my client's perspective, and I think from the perspective of the other liquor stores in this community, you're being asked to consider a complete flip-flop on an important decision, which I would submit you all made after some measured thought and consideration 7 months ago. The mere fact that Mr. Pagliarini or any other applicant for that matter has gone ahead and expended their time, money, and resources for a non-existent license is their own folly, and they can't come before you and complain that they have expended resources and are now throwing that upon you for no other reason but for sympathy, in my estimation. And that should bear no consequence in your decision today to either grant them a license or to add a 5th license. No license exists, and they simply put the cart before the horse, just like they admitted to you. And your city solicitor, Mr. Orsillo, has issued an opinion letter and a memorandum to each of you dated September 1, 2001 that I obtained from the city clerk. And he has aptly pointed out to you in his memo that the decision to increase the number of liquor licenses from 4 to 5 is within this council's absolute uncontrolled discretion. And because it is in your absolute uncontrolled discretion, there's virtually no legal challenge that anyone could ever successfully take should you keep the liquor licenses at 4, which we submit that you should. And to read his letter, he states, or his memo, says, although the town of South Kingstown may issue an additional Class A license as a result of the 2010 census, the council is under no statutory obligation to issue a 5th license. The state enabling legislation is permissive, not mandatory. So that's point number 1, that I think that this board would be doing an injustice to the notion of administrative finality and would essentially be flip-flopping from its decision 7 months ago. The second issue, which has been brought up by Mr. Pagliarini and my brother counsel, is this notion of the census. And as you're all aware, it's the census that has formed the basis upon which you're now allowed to exercise your discretion whether to increase the licenses from 4 to 5. As part of my due diligence in representing Wakefield Liquors, I obtained from your planning department a copy of the South Kingstown Comprehensive Plan 2010 update, as it's called. Now, this is a draft document, and when I asked the planning board secretary where the final draft was, she very candidly explained it to me that the final version is not available because the data regarding information from URI has not been analyzed yet. I would like to point out that if each of you have not read this document, that I would urge you to read this before you rule on this, because this document, prepared by your own town, pretty much concludes that the additional census for 2010 is attributable to increased students living at URI. And so if that's the basis for the increase in census, I really think that you need to use some measured judgment as to whether or not you're even going to, well, if that's even a consideration for you, the increase in census, to take that into consideration. And I'd really ask that you read this, specifically pages 18 and 19, because at least a half of that population increase is directly attributable to students at the University of Rhode Island. The last basis for opposition to this is that our state liquor laws are based on and were written to advance the state's interest in promotion of temperance. Now, I know everyone hears that word and it makes you just retract, but in the context that the General Assembly used that word, temperance does not mean abstinence. What it means is the liquor laws in the state of Rhode Island were specifically written so as to encourage moderation. And you can see it everywhere in the liquor laws. We don't allow franchise operations. We don't allow consulting agreements between larger liquor stores and small ones. We don't allow group advertising. We don't allow predatory pricing. There are all of these notions that exist in the law because the law is written to keep things moderate. And our United States Supreme Court, in a decision involving an issue regarding advertising, which I'm sure your city solicitor is well aware of, as I think his firm may have been involved in that, held that our state's interest in temperance is a substantial interest. So in simple terms, there is a strong government interest in reducing the sale and consumption of liquor. And if you think about that for a moment, what that government interest means on its face is that it's intended to stifle competition. There is an express notion in our general laws regarding liquor in general to reduce competition, because the General Assembly in its infinite wisdom has stated that the only way that we're going to effectively control the bad parts of the misuse and the overuse of liquor is to moderate it. So anytime you hear anyone coming up here saying, well, Wakefield Liquors and all of these other liquor stores don't want competition, they don't want competition, and for very good reason, because that's the way the law was written specifically. So I urge you to uphold your April 25th decision and adhere to the notion of administrative finality and keep the number of liquor licenses at 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Welcome.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Harry Cesario. I'm a licensed practicing attorney in the town of South Kingstown, since 1975. My office is located at 24 Salt Pond Road in South Kingstown, and I'm here representing the interest of Mrs. Rachel Northup and Mr. Louis Northup. There's been some comment made about administrative finality, and I have to admit that that was a conversation that I had with my clients on or after April 25th, 2011, when this town council adopted the resolution unanimously, 5-0, to not allow or authorize another Class A retail liquor license. And in addition to that, on April 25th, 2011, you voted unanimously to table, and I will recite, the resolution establishing a procedure and timeline for interested parties to apply for a Class A retail liquor license. Inconsistently, I'm here to support the town council's authority to issue a 5th Class A liquor license. However, I'm also here to support the, if this is a word, untabling of the second resolution to allow other interested parties to be part of the game and to present their petition to be allowed to be granted that liquor license in a location that hopefully will be approved by the planning board, the zoning board, and the town council. We've been here for the last 8 months. We've been listening and we've been following. And it's puzzling and it's not easy to advise a client who's already spent sums of money for land surveyors, landscape architects, legal counsel, accounting counsel, marketing consultants, after a 5-0 pretty dramatic unanimous decision that you weren't going to allow a license, which we respected at that time would be the final decision. However, this petition this evening was allowed to be accepted. So that's where the difficulty comes in when I'm advising my clients legally to jump back into the fray, so to speak. So here we are. What to do? We would like to have a license, but we don't know whether the council is going to authorize the issue of that license. And again, I would repeat, if the town council does authorize a license, then we would like the resolution to be adopted to allow other interested parties to file their petitions and continue with their procedures in order to go forward and make their pitch to all the government agencies. And if this town council doesn't authorize the issue of this license, I think I understand correctly that you cannot commit a future town council. Then it will be another town council that may issue a Class A retail liquor license. And if I had my druthers, I would have this council do it. And I would have this council be the council to select the entity that would be granted the license. And I would want this town council to be the council to choose the location of that Class A retail liquor license. Now, the previous speaker mentioned the fact that he was combining some of his presentation under subtitle D of the public hearings. And I suppose I should be allowed, or I will do the same, because I think it's all integrated and the conversation is all the same. I try to understand what the consequences would be if you do not issue a license. And the consequences would be not having a new business. A new business. That's not a bad thing. A new business would create jobs. A new business would have other beneficial economic trickle-down benefits. A new business would require insurance coverages. A new business would possibly buy a vehicle for deliveries or transporting whatever or whomever. A new business would be a resource for groups to seek donations. And I know as a member of the Wakefield Rotary Club for the last 34 years, I've always been to Mike Sweeney's, who's been very generous. I've always been to Jaber's and Wolf Rock Liquors, and those liquor store owners are very generous when it comes to gift giving, so we can raise funds for people who are less fortunate than we are and make this community a better community. So there are a lot of benefits to having a new business. And they would also give business to the local newspapers. Maybe one of these liquor stores someday would advertise prices, which has been banned since, the ban has been lifted since 1996, where Class A liquor stores were allowed to advertise prices. Now that's competition. That's another benefit. Monopolies are bad. Oligopolies are bad. And you have 4 stores who are operating as an oligopoly, and they're dominating the interest. In this industry, this retail liquor store industry leads a charmed and protected existence. There cannot be another license for a minimum of 10 years. And the last license was issued 40 years ago. So they're protected in time and by census. And if the census doesn't prove out in another 10 years, then there is no license. So they're protected in that sense. They're protected by the fact that the state does not allow beer or wine sales in supermarkets. That's a protection that they enjoy that no other retail sale business enjoys in the state of Rhode Island. They must mark up 6% of their invoice cost. That's by statute. And no one person can own more than one license. And again, that's a protection of this particular retail industry. Now, it's very admirable, and I give you all my respect and kudos for protecting the 4 existing retail outlets. However, success should be based upon business skill, experience, and knowledge, and not on government protection. These businesses have to survive and succeed on their own. And in finality and conclusion, I would like to say again, just to repeat, that we are in favor of authorizing a 5th Class A retail sales license, and we are also in favor of untabling the 2nd resolution to allow any interested parties to come forward and to present their case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cesario.
Good evening. My name's Jeffrey Salatin. I own a company called Salatin Real Estate Group, and we are the property managers for the Village of South County Commons. And I come before you this evening to, first of all, let you know that Susan Paglarini was not the first person that approached us, not the second. In fact, probably somewhere around the fourth to the sixth person that approached us for some form of a liquor store. And we had no interest in any of those other people that we talked to, but when Susan approached us, we found it to be very different. We found it to be very compatible with the South County Commons development. As you know, there's about 850,000 square feet there. There's a 100-room Hampton Inn hotel, I think about 259 apartments, 154 independent living units, 64 condominiums. We have 185,000 plus or minus square feet of retail and office and medical and services. And on any one given day, there's probably 1,500 people living or working there. And Susan's concept we found to be unique. We found it to be very compatible. It was going to be a boutique type wine shop. It was not something we felt that was going to be a super store. It was nothing that we felt that the local owners of the existing stores had the fear. We don't see why they should have any fear in this at all. We felt very comfortable with Susan and decided that we would tie up a space. That space has been tied up, as you know, since April because as she went through the process of your planning board and your zoning board. It's so very site-specific, it couldn't be a floating space. But we were comfortable doing it because we were comfortable with Susan Paglarini. We think that she's going to have a statewide audience. We think that her approach to marketing isn't going to be based on undercutting anybody in price. It's going to be some unique marketing. I'm sure you've all visited some of these specialty wine shops around the country as you traveled or if you've gone into other locations. And we felt comfortable. We felt the draw was going to come from greater Rhode Island. And we didn't see this as something that the local people should fear. We've got a lot of experience, our firm, and not only the Village of South County Commons, but in many, many buildings. I have one particular building that in the building is a Dunkin' Donuts, a Starbucks, and a Panera Bread in the same building. And they all have some unique differences between them, and competition works very well. And so we were comfortable. We weren't trying to bring somebody in here who was going to become a giant in the industry or, you know, or going to knock the socks off the competitors and undercut them. That was not our sense at all when we met Susan, and that's the reason we came before you to support this. We do believe that the store will be different and will be unique. We do think it'll draw from a greater Rhode Island audience, and we do support it. And we, as you all very much are aware, are a very large contributor to the real estate tax base in the town. We need to survive and compete in these very, very difficult times. And you've been very gracious with us over the years, and we thank you for that. And our effort to bring Susan to the property is for us to continue to develop and connect with the community and to survive. It's pretty tough out there for everybody. And we're trying to do the very best we can, and I thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Salatin. Bobby?
Well, Bob Traeger, I was here at the other meeting that you had about this. I remember, I think I spoke at it. I said a couple of things. And I've listened here you've listened to a lot of things being said. And I think I recall something about what I said at that other meeting. It came to me. My mind is a little slower than the lawyers here, and much more astute. And they have all their notes and everything. Well, my notes come and go, like the wind. But anyway, I think I got it. Well, question number one, are we going to have number 5? That's the main decision, because before you have number 5, you can't have a number 5. I mean, it's pretty simple. And, there's a lot of it's unbelievable dialogue here. I'll try to keep it short. I'm going to keep it quite short, I hope, because I don't want to hear any more about it, be honest with you. But as I think I said at the other meeting, what bothers me about this one is that I think you should, and I think somebody's already alluded to this here at the podium, that you should have a number 5 before somebody has the opportunity to get number 5. And I don't go for this, applying ahead of time, and I don't mind people doing the groundwork to know what they need to do, but then I think people should have the opportunity to apply, as I think the last speaker mentioned. Okay, I was going to not have show a bias, but I will show a bias, in a way, because I've been to every liquor store in the vicinity at one time or another for a bottle of, a case of beer or whatever, a wine or whatever. And I find there'd be plenty of them, to be honest with you. I think we got more liquor stores than we need already. But that's up to you. I mean, that's the decision you can make. But that's how I feel about that as a member of the community. But the other thing is the main thing. If you decide for a number 5, I think then it should be open in a very wide spectrum to allow people, because this is a valuable license. It's a very valuable license. I'd like to have it. I'd love it. If I could afford to even think about how to get it, I might do it. Anyway, see you later.
Thank you.
If I could just
Hi.
clarify something, because it's now been raised 3 or 4 times. You have 2 public hearings seeking licenses from you tonight, a Class A and a Class B. In both cases, those licenses don't presently exist. The applications are properly before you this evening because your rules and regulations require that if someone puts an application into the clerk's office, the clerk cannot reject it. The clerk must forward that application to you, and you must hold a public hearing, even though there are no licenses, because of course you have the discretion to create those licenses. So I just want you to know that these licenses are both properly before you. And back when you made your decision in April, for instance, on that Class A license, there was no application pending at that time. This is the first time there's actually an application pending. And the other thing that attorneys have alluded to is this is an application on a specific Class A license. Individuals have come up opposing it. As part of their opposition, they're citing to a number of reasons why you shouldn't issue a 5th license. I think when we get to public hearing D, we'll ask people to come up and ask to have all those comments reincorporated, but they are connected, but they're not, so.
Thank you. Further comments?
Good evening. My name is John Majika, M-A-J-E-I-K-A. Just a quick question. Attorney Cesario answered part of it for me. The last liquor license was issued 40 years ago. So I'm sure that many, many moons ago, the first license was there.
Dale is suggesting that she thinks the last license was issued in 1972, which is, I guess, approximately 40 years ago.
So there have been comments, a lot of hoopla about the competition. Well, after the first license was issued, the second license came up. I'm sure there were issues then. but 2 survived. Now a third one comes up. I'm sure there's more hoopla. 3 survived. Now you had the 4th issued around 72. I'm sure the first 3 spoke against the 4th one. 4th one was granted. They all survived. Now here is before you again is the 5th license. If it's granted, which I'm for, they'll all survive. It's competition. I won't drag this out any further, but it's going to go on. In the future, you'll have a 6th license, and the first 5 will be back again saying, we can't survive. It's a cycle that continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Majika.
Good evening. My name is Derek DeSalvo. I'm a South Kingstown resident. I decided to speak this evening to you because I am the general manager at Sweeney's Wine and Spirits. And I've been in the liquor industry since 1996. I used to work for Michael McGrath, who actually sold the business to Michael Sweeney. And I would like to think that I do have some insight on what actually goes on with the business. But my main concern is that I am employed at Sweeney's Wine and Spirits. If a new liquor store is to come into this town, it will create new jobs. With that being said, because the business is not what I believe the general public thinks it is, some people are going to lose their jobs. So if there's 4 jobs gained at a new establishment and there's 4 stores that are going to take a hit, there might be 4 jobs lost. And I certainly don't want to lose my job because of a new liquor store coming into a town that I believe does not need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeSalvo. Further comments? Any comments here at the table? Mr. Pagliarini.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not going to go through one by one. My brothers have both discussed temperance. I do not disagree with their arguments. However, they've omitted the fact that temperance comes at 1 per 6,000 inhabitants in a community. And that is the definition of moderation that the General Assembly has utilized. So, yes, there cannot be an abundance of liquor stores. However, 1 per 6,000 is the temperance standard. Both of my brothers also discuss administrative finality. Well, I was here in April. I don't know that they were. And at the time, I'm going to say this politically incorrectly, there was a little panic internally by the staff. The phone was ringing when the newspaper story broke that there would be the potential for a 5th license. And the phone was ringing and ringing. Clerk, planner, town manager's office. In what I would near describe as a knee-jerk reaction, on the 11th, it was raised whether or not you needed to put a process in place. At the following meeting, you had an option of either saying we're going to go forward with the process, or at this time, we're going to say no 5th license right now. And that's what you chose. Now, I can stand here and debate the process on how that was done. A resolution to amend an ordinance, the liquor ordinance. One can question whether or not it was done properly. That's not my argument tonight. I don't believe administrative finality exists, as both counsel has proffered to you this evening. measured thought and deliberation, I think, was more protectionism. I think this council did what they felt they needed to do to stop the phone calls at the time. But it was said an application would be heard at the peril of an applicant. There is an ordinance in place on how to secure a Class A liquor license. That ordinance was followed by Village Liquors. Just like Mr. Osillo just reiterated, there's a Class B liquor license before you this evening for a license that does not exist. This is how it has to be. This is how it's historically been. So I don't believe administrative finality comes into play. I've discussed temperance. Many of Attorney O'Keefe's late-breaking commentary is misplaced. Traffic, etc. If any project in this town has been vetted, it's South County Commons, years before the planning board. So while, yes, this particular use did not do a traffic studies have been engineered ad nauseum for the Commons. And that's why we had to go before the planning board, an additional step beyond any other potential applicant, and amend the master plan for South County Commons. And we had to go through that public scrutiny. So a lot of Mr. O'Keefe's points that he raised, I object to, because they're really not properly before this particular board, this council. They should have been presented to the planning board, and they were not there at that time. Mr. Sweeney's comments, I have no rebuttal. Attorney Kyle, he's implying a flip-flop, as I've discussed. I don't believe that's the situation. I think this council did what they felt was warranted in near urgent circumstances at the time. I mean, the phone was ringing and ringing. I made the calls too. It was a very interesting time. And this council did what they felt, but I don't believe that forecloses anybody. Just like my brothers who raised this argument, if 5 Republicans are sitting there a year from now, they're going to say administrative finality doesn't apply, we want that license. So it really is a specious argument. Attorney Kyle said that we complained about our cost and we're looking for sympathy. No, we're not. The applicant is a savvy businesswoman that understood the lay of the land and made application. It's an affront with Mr. Kyle's suggestion that she's here before you looking for sympathy. She has followed the letter of the law as it exists with state law and as it exists in the town of South Kingstown liquor ordinance. We have waited near 100 days for this public hearing. Patience has been on this side. Mr. Northrup, the Northrup Enterprises has made an application which shows there was a process. We have completed the process. They have not had step 1 of the process yet. An incompleted application has been tendered to the planning board and is trying to be made complete so it can get heard in a few months. Nobody who applies tomorrow morning will be back before you in the next 6 months. It will not happen. I don't believe in my professional land use attorney perspective that Northrup's going to be back here in 6 months. That's not the way the internal processes of the town of South Kingstown work. It's a minimum 3 months through planning. Depending on how the dates fall, it could be a couple of months through zoning, and then you have to set a hearing. And we applied to you on August 23rd, and here we are on November 28th. It could be another 9 months. As counsel for the Northrup cited, he believes there should be an application, and so do we. And we believe we have gone through the process. The applicant stands before you tonight asking for a decision. You heard the management company of the Commons say for 8 months they have held this unit. It is beyond reason to ask your largest taxpayer, or really any taxpayer, to hold a unit for another, however indefinite long, so that other persons can apply. I'll conclude by saying we ask at the proper time that you do increase the number of licenses to 5, as was permissible when this process began. And please do understand one fact that nobody else has raised. Village Liquors made their application to the planning board before this council met the first time to discuss its resolution. There are potential grandfather rights under the ordinance as it existed. So while council can stand here and say there are no challenges, nobody's threatening this council, but they're not leading you down the right path. The applicant is going to ask you this evening, or is asking through myself, to raise the number of licenses to 5 and then vote yea or nay on the village liquor application this evening. It causes undue hardship to ask that for any additional delay for other persons unknown at this time who may or may not exist to apply for this license. So we ask that you do approve this license. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pagliarini. Questions here at the table?
I just have one for Mike. Mike, is there anything to the argument of administrative finality?
In my opinion, that wouldn't apply here because this is the type of policy, by the way, it's not an ordinance. It's a
Right.
liquor policy, rules and regulations. That's why you didn't need an ordinance to amend that policy, just like this evening you have on the docket in 13A a resolution to amend that policy precisely because it's a policy, it's not an ordinance. That policy can be changed at any time that someone requests that you consider it. It's up to you as to when you would schedule that hearing. It doesn't have to be heard right away, but I would not believe that there's any administrative finality, especially given the fact that at the time you made that decision, there were no applications pending before you as a liquor licensing board.
Could you elaborate? I'm sorry, Jim.
Michael, can a mere application before the planning board considered, would that be considered vested?
I do not believe so, no. I would disagree with that comment.
Is that in reference to the grandfather rights? Thank you. Further questions here at the table? Any more comments from interested citizens that would like to comment on this public hearing before we close it?
Hi, I'm Susan Denunce from Patsy's. I'm also a taxpayer, and there's only one thing that I haven't heard mentioned, and the difference that I see in the liquor stores, they are a retail store, but they are heavily regulated, and they also need to be monitored by public safety. And I haven't heard that much that addresses the benefit to the taxpayers versus the potential cost to the taxpayers to have an additional liquor store that needs to be monitored to make sure that it's adhering to all of the regulations. And there are quite a few of them, but basically the drinking age and is the biggest one in our town with URI. So that's all I wanted to say is how much would this 5th liquor license actually end up costing the taxpayers versus how much benefit do we get from another liquor store? I mean, we have 2 grocery stores and 4 liquor stores, so I really don't see the need. Of course, I am from Patsy's, but I also am a taxpayer, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, can we entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. At this time, I'm going to move to public hearing C. This is a public hearing relative to an application for a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingstown in accordance with the general laws of 1956 as amended as follows. Class B victular liquor license, application for a Class B victular liquor license by DPTA Holdings II, LLC, doing business as Dragon Palace, 733 Kingston Road, Wakefield, Rhode Island, by Andrew R. Bilodeau, member for the dining room, sushi bar, bar area, and special potty area, and is further defined in a site plan on file in the town clerk's office. Said license is contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of good standing from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees in arrears to the town, and the correction of any fire code violations. So this public hearing is open. After we close this public hearing, we will go on to D, and then we will take a vote on the Class A and the Class B. So, if anyone would like to come to the microphone. Welcome.
Good evening. Attorney Kelly Carden representing the applicant DPTA Holdings II LLC, doing business as Dragon Place. Also, I do have both members of the LLC present tonight for any comments or questions that anyone may have. I would like to point out that the location at 733 Kingstown Road is currently vacant. However, it was previously operated by Shamrock's Restaurant, and they did hold a license at that location. So, in essence, what I would like to point out is that we're issuing a license at a location where a license has previously been issued, so the effect on the community will not change. I'd like to keep my statements brief and address any comments that might be raised by the public.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Please come to the mic.
Hi, Fran Alexakos. I'm the owner of 733 Kingstown Road. And as you probably know, my husband and I, my late husband and I, got that liquor license, and we've had it in that building since we built it in 1984. And unfortunately, when he died, I ran the business until '93, but having 4 young children, I decided to sell the business and keep the property, which has really maintained the children and helped them go to school. And we've had several people in there, and it's been sold 2 or 3 times, and this last time they went bankrupt. And I lost a lot of money, and it's been empty for 3 solid years. I've marketed it nationally, internationally. I've tried medical buildings, I've tried people from different restaurants, national chains, and because of the economy, it's been very difficult. We've even tried banks. And anyone that goes in, they say, you know, this was built as a restaurant, and this is really the only people that have come before us. The last year or two, the first 2 years I tried renting it myself and did advertisement, and I had my daughter who's in marketing help me do brochures, and we did a blast to everyone. And I called my brother in California, who's a vice president of Symantec, and he just told me to go on CoStar because they do national and international, and I've tried all kinds of ways. So finally I said, all right, Scott Hallberg from Landmark, who's local and someone I've known for a number of years, I said, would you take care of it? Will you try? I'm just so disappointed and discouraged. So he took it, and finally, this company, I guess it's called Dragon, it's actually Dragon Palace. And I said, well, gee, I'm really concerned because the last people, there were a lot of problems, and I didn't want my building associated with drunks and police and fights, and I really was concerned about a restaurant. So I did go to their place of business and ate there. It's down towards Richmond area. And I was pleasantly surprised. It's a family place. The food was excellent. The bar was minimal, and it's mainly to serve, the drinks that they serve with Chinese or sushi food. I was really encouraged because the food was very good, and I could see it was a family place. And I said, gee, this feels good. So I would support it. And as you know, I've had a liquor license there all this time. I mean, we got it in 1974, I believe. And then we transferred it down the hill when we built the building. And we lost the liquor license because the last people went bankrupt, and the lawyer took the license from us and took all the equipment in the building, and the loss was immense. So I would hope that you would take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Matthew Callahan. I'm an attorney representing this evening Kabuki, K-A-B-U-K-I, a Japanese restaurant, and also speaking on behalf of Chen's Chinese restaurant, the China Garden restaurant, and Shogun restaurant. I'd like to present our side of the story, and as is indicated earlier by the comments made at the previous hearing, and also by Fran just now, we all know it's not a very easy economy out there for anybody, and particularly for discretionary income places of business such as restaurants. And as the names of the people I'm representing tonight indicate, these are all Asian, Japanese restaurants within a very compact area. The Chen's restaurant and Kabuki and the China Garden are within perhaps 500 feet of each other, and Shogun is up the road on Tower Hill Road. But the new restaurant which is being proposed is, again, within several hundred feet of Chen's and the other existing Asian Japanese restaurants in that area. Each of those restaurants contribute an awful lot to the community. The Chen's has been in existence for 32 years. It's in its 33rd year right now. They pay taxes, they contribute much in the way of employees in the area, and the other restaurants all do the same. At the present time, they're all hanging on. Certainly discretionary income spending is down, and that market, the Asian Japanese restaurant market, it's not a big pie. It's a relatively small pie, and by opening another restaurant in that immediate area, it's going to have a very big impact upon the existing restaurants in the Asian Japanese market, particularly in this economy. Now, I think we all go around to various communities, at least I do, and I've heard other people say the same thing, that you go around, you see a McDonald's opens up, and all of a sudden there's a Burger King a couple of lots away, and then a Wendy's opens up across the street, or a CVS opens up, and then all of a sudden there's a Rite Aid and a Walgreens within a block of each of them. And we often end up saying to ourselves, why don't they just spread this out? Move it away so you can serve the community better than they are by having all three of them, whether it's fast food restaurants or drugstores, as we used to call them, within a couple of hundred-foot area. But from a legal and planning perspective, even though we think it might be a good idea to spread them out a bit, you really can't do that. That's not the way the law is written. There are very few areas where the law is written to give town councils and city councils the ability to do the type of planning which maybe we like to do. and one of them would be in zoning. An applicant can come before the town council and seek to get a zone change on a piece of property. Our Supreme Court has ruled many times that that's something which the council has discretion over unless the comprehensive plan mandates that it be changed. In other words, the council sometimes says, well, these people want to put in a gas station, but there already are 3 within 400 feet of that area. We don't need another gas station. That's not in the community's best interest to have another gas station, so we're not going to change the zoning on that lot to permit another gas station in that area. They can go somewhere else and try and do it. Well, the only other area that I'm aware of that the General Assembly has permitted the town councils, the city councils to do that is in the area of the issuance of liquor licenses. If this were just the transfer of a liquor license and not to a new location or the transfer to a new person in the same location, I don't think I'd have the argument I'm making right now, but the issuance of a new license is something which the council has discretion over. As has been indicated earlier, and I think is indicated by the town solicitor's opinion to the council a few months ago, the council has almost the unfettered discretion to determine whether or not to issue a liquor license, a new liquor license. And that's why caps and ceilings have been put on these things for decades, if not 100 years in Rhode Island. I think the reason that's been done is certainly for the temperance arguments that were made earlier, but also to give the towns some control over certain areas and a conglomeration of liquor licenses within a small area of town. And we want to present our position tonight that these people that are running these existing Asian Japanese restaurants are struggling right now. Putting another one within 200 or 300 feet of the existing restaurants is going to have an impact, and as indicated earlier, yes, it may bring in a few new jobs in that restaurant, but just as with the liquor stores, there's really not a tremendous market out there. The economy, as we all know, is struggling. There's going to be a couple of new employees in a new restaurant, there's going to be an impact upon the existing restaurants, and these are people who have been the fabric of the community, as in Chen's case for 3 decades, and in the others for a substantial amount of time as well. They have local employees who are going to be affected by this and may end up in the same situation that Fran indicated with their prior tenant in the bankruptcy courts. That's not going to be good for the community, and of course not for the employees or the people who are running those restaurants. I wanted to present our position with respect to this limited pie we have with Asian Japanese restaurants, and just indicate that there is going to be an impact upon those people who have been members of the community, contributing in many ways to the community, and we'd ask for your consideration when determining whether or not to raise the ceiling and issue a new liquor license.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Let me just make sure that there's nobody else, Fran. Just one second. Would anyone else like to speak before we go back to Fran? And then Mr. Traeger.
Andrew Bilodeau, one of the members of the applicant LLC. I would just like to say, point out, I'm also an attorney, a resident of Wakefield. I pay taxes here, lived here for 11 years. My brother had talked about McDonald's and Burger King's opening up next to one another, CVS, Rite Aids, they're all still in business. If we were here to open up an Italian restaurant, would that change the mind of the liquor license application or your mind as to approving it? I don't think that the venue should necessarily dictate whether or not the liquor license is approved or denied. We're looking at putting, excuse me, $300,000 to $400,000 of our money, no loans, cash, into this building to improve it, to get a vacant property now with a booming business. We're looking at hiring 15 to 20 employees. That's what the average employees are right now down in Richmond. The business down here is thriving. There's another Chinese restaurant probably about 200 feet away from the Richmond restaurant. It's still in business. We haven't put them out. So I think there's plenty of market for another restaurant in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bilodeau. I think it was Bobby Traeger and then Fran.
I think the previous speaker kind of said what I was thinking. I I don't put this in the same category as a number 5. This is a different thing. And I think there is room. If somebody so chooses to invest that kind of money, they must believe they have a good product or they're going to serve the public well, or else they won't get any business. So, I mean, if they're willing to take that kind of a risk, I'm in support of that type of endeavor.
Thank you. Fran?
What came to mind is, as you know, my late husband and I, we had pizza restaurants. And we had 4 or 5 of them at one time. And every time we'd train someone, they'd go and open a pizza restaurant not too far, maybe 200 feet away, from each location. And my late husband's thought was, this is America. Competition is good. The sun shines for everyone.
Thank you. Further comments?
Just as a final statement in a response to Attorney Callahan, I did want to just reiterate that this business will be creating its own niche within the market. So it's not necessarily a competitor with Attorney Callahan's clients, but even if it is, competition is what helps thrive our economy. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but this business does deserve its chance to create its niche and to survive in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the public? Any comments here at the table? Questions? Carol?
I guess for you, Kelly, and maybe you, Fran, there were issues with parking at the last, I guess Fran would probably know better, with the last bar that was in that location. How many spots are there for parking?
It's currently 27 spots on location. If you've been in that parking lot, there's also a driveway that leads around to the Midas, and we reached an agreement with the owner of the Midas property to use additional parking in there, which is another 27 spots. And the area is well lit. Right now, there's no lights on, just to conserve electricity at this point because the building, excuse me, is vacant. However, that area will be well lit. There'll be a directional spot in the Midas parking lot as well to light those spots up at night.
And what time would those be available?
It would be why the business is open. We're planning on, we asked for a 12 to 12, but realistically, it's going to be an 11 o'clock shutdown. We're not looking for a bar crowd. It's a restaurant crowd, family venue, and they'd probably stay on until about 12 o'clock after employees leave, or that can be adjusted. It would be on a timer.
So those spots at Midas, those would be available to you all day or just after a certain hour?
No, actually, those spots are on the property that we're renting, that location.
Oh.
But we'd put up an additional light to focus on the Midas side, okay? So that we would be in control of the spotlights.
Okay. I was just concerned about the parking, but you did say you had extra, that you
There'd be
could
50
use Midas parking
Correct.
after a certain hour, I would imagine?
It's pretty much been wide open as far as their parking needs are very limited compared to what ours would be. So we're looking at about 54 spots that are available to us.
Great.
Kath?
So from my recollection of, and I have not been in the building in a while, there were pool tables in the back room. That's not going to be, this is definitely family run, because that leads
Correct.
to some issues that happen in that.
Excuse me, there'll be no pool tables, there'll be no live entertainment, it's strictly going to be a restaurant. We're not looking for a big bar crowd. And what's different about this restaurant as opposed to many of the others in town, in addition to offering just Chinese food, we'll have a small sushi bar. So for somebody that's, me for example, I'm not a big fan of Chinese food, however I like sushi. So a restaurant like that would cater to both needs simultaneously.
Okay, all right. Because that was my next question, because you have like the Chen's that brings in the jazz music, and then if that was, because as a family restaurant, I would assume that you probably, with what you have for parking, would probably be enough.
Yeah, we'd be maxed out at that point with 54 spots. I mean, we have no desire to have any type of entertainment or anything other than just serving food and, for a family atmosphere.
Yeah, because when it was the pool tables and the music, then
Yeah.
it got into the other parking lot and
Right.
issues arose, there's no doubt.
Yeah, no, there's definitely not looking
Okay.
to
No.
bring that venue into
Thank you.
into town.
Okay.
Any other further comments here at the table or questions? Okay, I'm going to open it to the audience one more time before we close the public hearing. Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. I'm going to move on to D. This is a public informational hearing for public discussion relative to the need for additional liquor licenses within the community. And
Ella,
at this,
I'm sorry.
at this time, do we need a motion, or can I move to new business 13A?
No, here's what I'm going to suggest for D. You're opening up the public informational hearing, but the first thing I would suggest you do is someone move to incorporate by reference the record that has already been made in public hearings B and C. That would include all the testimony and all the exhibits, to incorporate it into this meeting. Then, obviously, you can open up to the floor and people can make additional comments, but at least you will then have, as a record here, many of the comments that were really directed to this issue.
So moved.
Second.
We have motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Which now brings us
Dale
to,
actually has some correspondence.
and was there a communication, Dale, that we needed to read? Another one?
One communication for this public hearing, dated October 21st, to the town council from Larry Fish, the chairman of the South Kingston Economic Development Committee, supporting the increase of the increase to 5 of the Class A retail liquor licenses.
Thank you. So at this point, we are at 13, not yet.
Actually, Ella, although you've incorporated the records from public hearing B and C, there may be additional public comment that you need to allow the public to make under D.
Thank you. So again, the microphone is open under public hearing D. If you'd like to come to the microphone, state your name. Mr. Cesario?
Harry Cesario again. We're on D, correct?
Yes, we
Okay,
are.
okay. So, need. Now, how do you define need? That will be the magic question. A need, economically, in my mind, is something you discuss when you apply for a public utility license, whether you're going to have more taxi cabs, or more towing companies, or more beds in a hospital, or more beds in a nursing home. That's need that needs to be discussed by government agencies when there is an application for expansion or petitions for those types of businesses. When you're discussing need for a new retail store, that discussion is not available to a furniture store, or it's not available to a clothing store. We're talking about a retail store. I don't know the need to talk about need. We're talking about free enterprise system. We're talking about competition. That's what we need. We need competition. Competition lowers prices. It provides convenience to your citizens. It generates jobs. It adds to the tax base. That's where the discussion should be. And as I stated before, and I know Mike has suggested incorporating all the arguments, but we're talking about a new business. This is a new business. Take the opportunity to embrace free enterprise. Allow a new business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cesario. Mr. O'Keefe?
Mr. Cesario was quick to talk about need, but need is not in the criteria that you've set forth for consideration of a new application in your rules and policies and procedures, the liquor license rules and regulations. For new license applications, you set forth the basis, certain basis for denial, which we've talked about in my earlier presentation, which I'd asked to incorporate. It was compliance with all town ordinances, citizen reaction to the application. You have Ms. Stone's letter on behalf of the partnership, proximity of location or residential area. We heard from Mr. Saloon that there were many residences that are very close to it in the commons, some assisted living. We also know it's next to a learning center, the Sylvan Learning Center. Impact on traffic, well, the federal government thinks it's the 6th worst intersection in the state of Rhode Island, and it's actually rated higher than the Thurbers Avenue exit at Route 95. They're both horrors. Parking we talked about. There's very minimal parking at the site of the store. The impact on existing municipal services, there doesn't seem to be any adverse impact. The impact on the police department, Chief Espy, if there are 5 or 50, will be able to manage the departments here, so that's a non-issue. But ultimately what it is how, you know, you're trying to quarter a pie here, and every slice you take out here or every nip here is a tuck there, and if you gain 5 jobs there, you lose 5 jobs here. If you get more income there, you get less income here. It's a very small market with a lot of players. Mr. Sweeney talked about the players outside. There is no right, you know, in terms of temperance that Mr. Pagliarini suggests and says temperance is set at 6,000 per unit. Well, that's not exactly true. What is exactly true is it may be considered at 6,000 a unit, but they leave the determination as to the service of temperance to you. They're not saying it's a must, and the discretion is yours. A couple of things I do want to mention. I do have the minutes from the Economic Development Committee meeting of October 13th, where those votes were taken. The result was unanimous. And one of the things, the case in terms of administrative finality, for ease of reference, the latest case I could find was one by Mr. Justice Darrigan of our great Superior Court that he issued on April 4th, 2011, and he goes into a full discussion of the administrative finality. We think when he came before the planning board, he should have taken his best shot because he only had one. And you can't simply be doing this again and again on successive applications. That's what the principle is. It's when you seek the same relief a second time around. And if I may hand this, just as a matter of convenience, case is 401 Auto Sales LLC versus Rhode Island Motor Vehicle Dealers Licensing Hearing Board. It's Mr. Justice Darrigan's decision about coming up with. So that's really where we end up, having made the arguments on the Class A previously. I believe Mr. Sweeney would want to just speak and incorporate his, and Mr. Denunzi the same.
As earlier Harry said, what's need? And I am here telling you that I've driven around this town 1,000 times. I've never seen lines outside of any of our local liquor stores. I know all the towns within 10 square miles of Dale Carter, there are 11 stores. 11. There is no real need for another one. Can you put one in? Sure you can. You could add as many as you want. You could put a gentleman's club on Main Street if you decide that's what you want. Is it a need? I don't believe it is. I think the theory of it's not broke, why are we fixing something that makes sense? We're very responsible. We work well together. Harry alluded that we are like sharing pricing and we're doing all this collusionary work. Every one of our stores are independently owned. We don't share product. We don't share anything. The ruling of no advertising price, it's expensive to advertise in this town. It's not cheap. So we don't advertise price because it makes no sense to us. Not for any other collusionary reason that Harry tried to make it seem like we're a big collusionary group, because a lot of us don't get along together personally, but we do work together for a common good. And I take great offense to his comment that we're some sort of giant group that works a little magic around this town. You can drive around this town, the prices are very different in very different stores. The larger stores are a lot more value priced than I can afford or someone like Patsy's. We are a small unit, and every little piece that we lose, we're done. It's not coming back. You add it to Louis Northrop and put one up in the north end of on 108, there's going to be serious consequences. I don't think Gary will survive, and I'm worried about my family. My house is on the line. I live in this town. I have real concerns. I'm not a very wealthy man. Everybody else who in this little group we got behind us is very wealthy. I'm not. I'm fighting for what I have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Gary Denunci, Patsy's. You know, it's a situation where it's a tough call. I mean, everybody's at stake. You know, we work hard. I have 2 young kids, twins, 6 years old now. Put a lot of time and effort into it. Licenses, police, it's a tough business. And I don't think we need another store. It's up to you guys. That's about it. I'll leave it up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Genenzi. Mr. Pagliarini, and then I'm going to come back to Bobby.
Very, very quickly, Madam President, this issue, you have the opportunity this evening to put to rest by increasing the number to 5 and approving the application that you have before you, which is a boutique business that will have minimal store hours and minimal impact. Failure to increase to 5 this evening, and I'm going to play Nostradamus, the casino issue is what this town is going to be faced with, only it's going to be the 5th liquor license. It is going to come back before every town council until it's granted. You have the opportunity this evening. It may not be a pleasant decision. You have friends who own these other liquor stores. The applicant is not somebody who lives in town. The applicant is not somebody who you know. Your duly appointed boards have felt that it meets all the criteria. Your Economic Development Committee has sent a letter of support. The other liquor stores did not raise their hand during the process, but they come to you this evening, well after the fact, and say, we don't need another liquor store in this town. We have 358 signatures verified, I don't know. You know, did people, from what we know, we knew this petition was circulating. Persons we know were in the liquor store, and basically it's signed here, and people just signed the petition. Don't know if they knew what they were signing. Give them the benefit of the doubt that they did. But you have before you an application that meets all your criteria. It's a small store. It's a store that's going to operate on minimal hours. It's a store that is not going to cater to a clientele that this council would object to. It is a store that is going to be the least possible intrusion into the businesses that occupy a very small space in Wakefield. So I want to leave you with this thought. Is this the beginning of the casino type issue in this town? And ultimately, will a council down the road approve this license? And secondly, based on the discussion on the restaurant, I really do need to ask the question again. is the town of South Kingstown open for business? Or are the borders closed, and if you happen to live here, you can open a business in this town, but don't bother applying if you're from out of the town? And that's the tenet, the tone that two applicants are hearing from fellow business in this community. It's shameful. It's isolationism, it's protectionism, and I hope they're not members of the Chamber of Commerce, because I'm sure that's not what they preach. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was Mr. Traeger. Did you want to speak? No, I'm going to go to the back. Mr. Veely?
Joe Veely, I'm a resident of Wakefield, also a member of the Economic Development Committee. A couple of references were made tonight about how the EDC weighed in on this issue, and I just want to clarify that nothing that the EDC does is rubber stamped, for instance, and there was reference to lively discussion at the EDC meeting, and the liveliest part of the discussion was that there is no process. Whether you grant a fifth license or not, applicants didn't know what the process was. So that's my 2 cents from the EDC, my position on the EDC.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Steve Clegg, and I am a South Kingston resident. Does anyone know if the EDC has ever declined a business economic development committee? Why are they going to turn down any business in the town of South Kingston? They'd be foolish to say no. To use them as a reference, to me, is a little bit ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 500. Which now brings us to new business item 13A, which is on page 6. This is a resolution affirming or amending the town's liquor license rules and regulations, Section 1. The number of licenses for each class shall be authorized as indicated below. So conversations, discussion here at the table.
I would like to leave A the way it is. I would like to increase B by 1, making that 24.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
Can I just ask for a question first? Sure.
Well,
Can we get a
really
second
need a
first?
second, and
And then
then
we'll
we'll have the
discuss.
discussion.
Do we have a second?
If there's no second, then
Can I ask a question for clarification only? To amend the 13A, okay? On the retail license, if we increase to 5, is it only as to this particular application, or then can it be considered for other applications? Can it be opened up, or is that not possible?
no, that's going to be up to the council. In fact, as Dale has pointed out to you, that is an option that you have. It's option number 3.
But it says, as option number 3, it's,
That would be in the discussion, Carol?
I'm just trying to figure out if you,
Right. If you want, so in other words, if
do you
the
have to vote to
council's
affirm or
desire-
deny right now to open it up? That's what I'm asking.
If the council's desire is to hear from other potential Class A liquor license applicants
Mhm.
prior to, you should do that before making this change. So you would not increase the number this evening.
And Carol, you would move forward and actually set a time frame
that you feel is appropriate for the other applicants, and really hold in abeyance the existing eligible applicant who's met all the criteria through the process.
Right.
Set a finite period of time where you can come back, not only consider the existing applicant, but any other potential applicants who may get through the process and meet the town's requirements per the liquor license regulations.
And who would establish the timeline? The staff? Is that?
Council.
Oh, we would. Okay.
That's what the council wants to do.
Is it possible that we could entertain a motion separating rather than putting the Class A and the Class B together? Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
So what is it, Mr. O'Neill?
I move that we increase Class B victualler license to 24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Jim O'Neill?
Yeah, really appreciated hearing from everyone tonight. In regards to this particular license, I certainly am in favor of moving up 1 to 24.
B to 24.
Pardon?
You mean B to 24?
B to 24. That's the one we're on now, right?
Yes.
Stay there, yeah. No, that's, we're looking, that building is made for a restaurant, as discussed earlier. It's had a liquor license for, 25, 30, 40 years now going on there. I appreciate the fact of the difficulty having that particular business being so close to others in town, but I really think in this particular case it's warranted to continue that particular business. I certainly see the investment side of this, which I appreciate, but history dictates to me that I can go along moving that up 1 to 24.
We have a motion and a second. Kathy?
And I'll also add to that is that, and I did hear Mr. Kavanaugh talking about how many liquor licenses, and it was a concern of mine with the pizza restaurant that opened up, down in the Matunic area. How many is enough? But that is a restaurant that has a history of a restaurant. It's had a license there in the past. And I know Fran has marketed. Fran has been here before, talking about, trying to keep that for her family and what she's been going through. She has been in front of this council. I do know the history of it. I understand the other restaurants' concerns for the competition of it, but if there was a Mexican restaurant, we'd have, other people complaining, whether it's Taco Bell or, El Fuego, or if it's Italian restaurant or a pizza restaurant like Fran's husband, Ricky, used to own there years ago. It's just, we'll have to see what happens with that particular restaurant. And again, it's no offense to the other restaurants. I think they're all excellent restaurants. But I do believe that a liquor license should be granted for that particular spot because of the history that is there.
Carol?
I just wanted to say that I do appreciate, Mr. Callahan, all your arguments, and I appreciate the economic difficulties for the other Asian restaurants in town, but competition, it's not our job to control competition, in my view, although I understand you can only stretch the businesses so far. But I do think that Fran's business has been, as Kathy said, it was a restaurant for many, many years, had a liquor license, and it has been vacant for 3 years, as she testified, and it is high time. I know she's tried hard to get somebody in there, and I have to support that. I believe that this will work, and hopefully everyone can benefit, including the other restaurants that you represent, Mr. Callahan.
So let me just ask for a point of clarification. Can we isolate under this new business A and do a motion for the Class B and then do a separate motion? I don't think we can.
Well, it just so happens that this evening you have 2 separate requests before you,
Right.
which is unusual. So you can vote separately on each of these classes. of
Okay.
liquor license.
Okay, thank you.
So we have the motion.
So we have a motion and we also have a second. I'm also in agreement that, I will support the increase of the Class B victual license to 24 for the reasons, already stated.
And I certainly would too.
Okay. So any further discussion here at the table? So we have a motion and a second to increase Class B to 24. Ready? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Would somebody entertain a motion?
I will put a motion back in, that we keep the Class A licenses as they are now. We have 4.
I'll second.
We have motion and a second. Discussion. Jim?
Yeah, this is, always falls in our lap, but that's what the state has done, and it's our job to make some tough decisions. And this is not an easy decision. Just to regress for a minute, and not to bore my council members, but the world is certainly changing here pretty quickly. You know, we have this small town, all of a sudden grew pretty fast, but now we've got the Walmarts surrounding us, and we have the internet. And boy, tough competition, no question about it. Not a whole lot that we can do. But what it comes down to is a smaller town, and how do we promote and help small business, local business? I'm certainly one that I've heard a lot about competition tonight, and I really appreciate that. And in my early life, I invested and lost a lot of money in a lot of startup businesses, so I've certainly been through the ringer. But there are a few features here and why I'm going to vote to deny this application. And the main reason is, and I've got these figures, so bear with me, everyone. The meals
Jim,
tax.
I'm sorry, Jim, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Right now, we're going to, when we deny applications, if that's where we're going to go, that's going back to page 2.
Okay,
and
so, all right,
items
just so why I
E.
seconded. I should have left it that way.
So
I
this,
seconded the motion.
this is just a discussion as to increasing it from 4 to 5 or leaving it at 4.
Okay,
And then your other further comments can be addressed when we get to
All right, shall I do that
license E.
later then? Okay, but that's why I seconded.
Okay.
All right, that's right.
That would be a correct procedure. You should be discussing why, the motion on the floor is to leave the Class A's at 4. So the discussion should be around why you feel you should leave it at 4 and not increase it to 5.
Okay, well, then I'll finish. I'll go back to that, because then I'll refer to the testimony that I heard tonight, but which I'd already driven many times throughout our localities here. Mr. Sweeney brought up, and I was armed with that information. I can only tell you, I'm in the real estate business. A lot of my customers on the South Shore shop at the Mini Mart for food and Charlestown Package Store. A lot of my families that come home down Route 2. There's a reason that Wolf Rocks is located where it is, and it's right on the South Kingstown border and covers one of the egress access roads in and out of URI. Then you have Rippy's down the road on Route 2. So there are 3 there. And out of Narragansett's liquor stores, there are a lot of people that come in the back door to South Kingstown, down Old Boston Neck Road. You've got Bonnet Liquors, and then, of course, Wakefield. It's a short distance to move over to O'Neill, which is no relation, package store. So I'm looking at those 5, plus the 4 internally. I'm looking at 9 package stores, which directly, right on our borders, what I think is just overall just too much in the way of competition. And believe me, I like competition here, but I'll discuss later numerically why I feel the 9 stores is overwhelming for the needs of South Kingstown citizens.
Thank you. I think it was Polly.
Yeah, thank you, Ella. Yeah, the main thing I heard tonight for increasing this number was for competition, and I honestly think that the 4 stores we have in town, liquor stores, are enough for this town. I did not hear anything terribly compelling to increase the number, and I didn't receive any calls, or I usually do, about this. I didn't receive any calls in favor of increasing the number of liquor stores in town. The people I talked with were people who said not another liquor store. So my constituents feel rather strongly that 4 was the right number.
Kathy?
Well, Polly, I mean, Ella, excuse me. I actually was going to lean towards the due process, and that if additional applicants do come forward, I think that the council should listen to them. I'm not for increasing the retail license at all tonight, but I do think that due process, and if there are other people, who come to the gate, maybe there is a compelling story that could come forward after they do their, surveys and so forth. So I thought that we should leave it open, because it will come back to haunt other councils, I think, not haunt, but it will be there for other councils to come up with a decision. So, the option that I thought we might consider is for due process not to completely close this out, because other people might come forward. There might be other development areas in the town, and not commercial highway, that might compel some of us to vote, or another council to vote. So I was interested in that particular option. I just wanted to put that on the table.
You're open-minded. Good.
I am open-minded.
May I ask Mike a question? Mike, can we only bring up expanding licenses once a year?
No.
We can
no,
bring it
it's-
up any time. If
That's
someone
correct.
comes next month, we could increase the number of
Right,
licenses.
if
That
there
was
is-
my thinking.
If there is another application that comes before you at a future point, again, once that application, if it's complete, it has all of the required zoning approval, et cetera, once it gets to the clerk's office, then she has no choice but to put it before you. And at that point, you will have to
And we-
go through this process
Yeah,
again.
so we don't have a loose one hanging out there, but we could increase it any time. Thank you.
That is correct.
Carol?
I'm not necessarily opposed to the extra liquor license, and I suppose that could be obvious from the way I vote on several matters. But I would like to open it up to see who else is out there that may be interested in applying for this license. I do appreciate, Mrs. Pagliarini, what you've put together, and I hope you stay with it. I think you have a good idea, but I'd just like to be fair. And fairness is key to the judicial process, to this process at this bench, and I would like to give everyone the opportunity, and then we make an informed decision. Now, my understanding is tonight I can't vote, I could vote to increase it, but the way to go about opening this up is to keep the number the same and come up with a timeline to allow for other applicants to apply, and locations, and, we'll consider all of those with all of the criteria that we considered tonight. So in an attempt to do that, I don't know what the efficient amount of time would be to continue this.
Actually, in reading the clerk's memo, the suggestion is that staff prepare
Right.
for you a suggestion about what an appropriate timeline and process would be, would report that back to you. So, although I said earlier, you all set the timeline tonight.
Yeah.
If that's the direction you're going to go into, it's actually been recommended that you let staff work out all those details and then report back to you on that issue.
That's what I would like to do.
But at this point, at this time, I believe we have a motion to keep it at 4, and we have a second.
That is absolutely correct. So you're going to have to vote on that one way or another. Depending on how that motion goes, there may be another motion.
Right.
And then, just one more clarification, so then if we're interested in opening up the process, where do we put that in? Not in this item? If we want to open up the process at a later date to other applicants? That's not involved in this vote.
If I could just, that process will automatically open up if someone files for a Class A liquor license.
Well, we already have one who's filed, so theirs stays.
We will go back to page 2, item E, and vote on that. Right now, the motion on the floor is to increase. If we have another application in front of us, then we will have to do another public hearing and go through this process again.
But in fairness to the Pagliarinis, I think we need some kind of deadline, so that, I do think we need to do that.
And so in that case, you're going to direct staff to come up with those guidelines for you, those deadlines.
So that they'll have a time certain?
You can just direct the staff to do that.
Okay, that's what I'd like. Is that in this motion, do we do this? No, okay.
The motion right now is whether or not you're going to keep the number of Class A licenses at 4.
And my motion was that we do keep it to 4.
If you vote to keep it at 4, then it doesn't change. But then you could still direct staff to come up with a timeline.
Okay.
And when you go back to license hearing B, you don't necessarily have to deny it, you can just keep that open.
Okay.
Okay, any further comments, questions here at the table? Jim?
Yeah, Ella, also too, just some other information that was given tonight. I really believe there's enough evidence to show that at best it would be a wash. I think the jobs that would be lost would probably not even be equal by the jobs that would be gained. So I think I heard enough evidence on that to support my seconding of this motion.
Further comments here at the table? That was really a decision that was the turning point for me. Listen to some of the compelling stories of the people in town that have been in business and possibly losing their business. That really wrenched at my heart. I thought that Mr. Paglarini has done a great job, and stick with it. And if we have any, when we get to that process, if there are further applications, this may be the town council or future town council to deal with that. So with that said, we have a motion to keep the Class A retail liquor license at 4, and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Kathy?
And I just want to add one thing, that I do have to address that it's not because Mr. Paglarini is from out of town. We have plenty of businesses, and you can come to the next council meeting and you can review the minutes of other meetings. There are plenty of people who come from all parts of Rhode Island and open up businesses here in South Kingstown. So even from Connecticut and over the line. So we approve businesses all the time here, and we are certainly open for business. And I just feel I have to correct that before we vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I just have to ask one more question, Mike, and I don't know if I'm just hitting a block here, but how do I put that motion on the floor that I would like to direct it to staff after this?
We vote.
After you vote on it.
Okay, right after that. Okay.
Okay, the motion is to keep it at 4. We ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500.
Now, before we get to Carol's point, I would like you to make a motion to affirm the numbers for each of the other classes, so it's very clear that you're not changing the number of liquor licenses in any other class that remains in that chart.
Would you like that in a motion?
Yes, please.
Kathy?
I'll make a motion to affirm that the Class B Tavern stays at 2, the Class B Limited stays at 4, the Class B Hotel stays at 1, the Class B through M stay at 0, Class C is 0, Class D Club Full Privileges stays at 2, Club D Club Limited is 0, F there's no limit, and F1 is no limit.
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500.
Now would be the time to have the discussion as to whether or not you would like to have staff pursue a timetable and a process and report back to you with regard to additional licenses. And the way this would work, so that we play this out, you have 2 public hearings that you've closed, but you've deferred a decision on. You're going to vote on whether or not to grant that Class B license, which you've now created, to Dragon Village. So you're going to have to do that. On the Class A, there is no license to give out. On that public hearing, you're either going to vote to deny it because there is no license to give out, or right now, you're going to direct staff to develop
Right
this
now?
process.
Yes. Are we saying right now? Are we right now?
Which one are we going to take up?
Right, yeah. Sure. Yeah, they can table it when we get back to the class. Well, you're right. I suppose Dale points out an interesting point. You could go back to public hearing B right now, and the motion could be to defer the decision on the Class A license and direct staff to recommend to table the decision, hold it in abeyance, and direct staff to develop a procedure and timeline for all interested parties to apply for a future potential increase in Class A licenses. I'm just reading from
Right.
number 3 there.
Mhm.
So why don't you do that? Why don't you go back now to public hearing B, which is the Class A license, and decide whether or not you either want to deny it because there's no license, or whether you want to defer the decision and go the route that has been described with regard to setting the process and procedure and timeline.
Move on that? I make, you want to open it up?
Well,
We're on,
yeah, you're back on public hearing B.
B.
It's been closed. You need to make a decision one way or another
okay.
now.
I'm going to move that we defer the decision and direct staff to develop a procedure and timeline for all interested parties to apply for a potential increase in the Class A category and return to the public hearing for, and then have a public hearing at that time, I would, okay.
At a future
As to
date.
all the applications, including the Paglarinis.
Correct.
Theirs
That's
will
correct.
stay.
That's right, because you'd be deferring the vote on his application, yes.
Right. So that's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Excuse me, Ella, is B, do we have to reopen B?
No.
No.
It's closed.
It's a motion.
It's
I know it's
just-
closed,
you're
but-
just deferring, the motion is to defer the decision on B, on that license.
This is the Class A, Jim.
So even though we voted unanimously no,
Right.
It won't increase
You
it.
voted not to create a new license.
Correct.
So
So
there's
that's done.
no license.
That's done. You can't
So
change
your
that.
choice, you have two choices at this point. Either you can vote outright to deny the application because there are no licenses. That's choice 1. Or choice 2 is the motion that's been made and seconded, which is to not make the decision to deny, but to defer the decision until such time as this timeline and process and procedures develop, to see whether or not that there are other interested applicants for that, a new potential Class A license that you would have to decide at some future point. So you can either decide the issue tonight, saying no, and that's the end of it, or you can go this other route, which is the motion now before you. Does that make some sense?
And really, this is just to put a timeline of development, a procedure in place for, so if there's a future application that comes forward, or 3 or 4 or 5, there'll be a process put in place.
And Paglary means Village Liquors application.
He stays in the queue.
Stay alive, yeah.
He stays in the queue with everybody else.
But we need to give them a date
May I ask-
certain.
Well, we have to develop it, but you have
Right.
to direct us to develop.
They have to develop it.
That's right, that's what the motion was, right.
Because this is going to come up for councils down the line anyways.
is.
If this council doesn't approve
Right.
a retail a process needs to be in place for future councils beyond us if it never happens in front of the 5 of us. So that's all it is just doing a policy in place. That's it.
And to
right.
allow,
Hold it
and allow
there.
others to
That's right.
apply.
That's what I'm looking to do
And
here.
in the meantime, you're deferring the decision on this particular applicant under Carol's motion.
Polly?
And the point of this motion is to solidify a process, because this is something we've done before, when we had 20,000, and then when we went up to 24,000, we could increase
26, well.
26,000. We
6,000 at
We
a time.
did figure out a way of increasing, so this is just to codify a process.
And to allow other people to apply. That's my
Right,
understanding.
because
they've
it's
always been able
40
to.
years since you
can't apply.
last done this.
Advertise, but
It's-
solicit for application.
Mhm.
Michael, I'm sorry, but please help me out here.
I will-
Anybody can apply,
Anyone can.
anytime.
Correct, Jim.
We
Anytime.
denied this, so now you're taking away denial tonight to become a deferral?
No, it's denied.
You don't have to, no. You can deny this application outright tonight, and that's the end of it. And then if someone else applies in the future, then you can deal with that one, and maybe there'll be others that apply at the same time. So you are totally correct. You have the right to simply make a decision this evening to deny if you desire.
But what I'm asking for is for staff to develop a procedure and timeline for all interested parties to apply for a potential increase in the Class A category. That's what I'm asking for. So I just want to make it clear what I'm asking for.
That's fine.
Right.
Been moved and seconded.
I'm just saying to get the procedure in place, Jim. I'm not saying to increase it. We've already voted. It's done.
Well, not increase tonight, but it could increase at a
It could
later
increase
date.
it, but I'm just saying
A
the
later
procedure
date.
needs to be in place. That's all I'm saying. You have to have that's what all I was looking for with this one.
Point of order, Madam President.
No, it's closed.
Well, this is
I don't-
this is closed.
No.
All, if any on the council need questions to be asked, you can direct them to myself and staff
Yep.
here, but
Closed.
you'd be doing two things under Carol's motion, to really clarify. Number one, you'd be deferring the decision on the Class A application that's before you tonight. You would not be denying it tonight. You'd be deferring it because, and the reason you'd be deferring it is because it would give you an opportunity theoretically at some future point to, if you did raise the number from 4 to 5, to consider awarding the license to this applicant, or perhaps to some other applicant.
But there has to be a reasonable timeline.
I don't disagree with you, but that staff
be
is
up to the
asking that
staff
they
to
be
do.
allowed to look at the process and come back to you at the next council meeting with a proposed timeline and process. So that's what your motion is. If that motion fails, someone else can make a motion to deny the license.
Point of order, Madam President.
Mr. Rosillo?
Mr. Pavarini, we cannot reopen this hearing.
Nobody asked that the hearing be open, Mr. Solicitor. I asked for a point of order on the motion that's on the floor.
Direct the point of order to me, and I'll decide whether or not they're going to.
I'm asking for a clarification of the motion that is on the floor, that it's proposing to defer a license that is not available for an undisclosed amount of time that staff does not have a time limit to submit to the council, so that somebody may or may not apply for a license that may or may not be available. Is that the motion that, as I understand it,
If you're
sir?
just asking for clarification of the motion, I would agree, yes.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Okay, so is anyone else going to second the motion that Carol made?
I would like to amend the motion. I can only amend a motion that's been seconded.
Maybe you want to make a whole new motion. If there is no second,
Right.
you can make a whole new motion, Jim.
I would just like to make a motion to deny the fact that we do not have a license open. I want to stay with clear cut, as I believe this council made a decision a few minutes ago. This does not take away anybody's right to come back, including the Pagalinis.
That is correct. Anyone could come back.
Anyone can come back.
Second.
Discussion?
Is this my chance
Jim?
to finally discuss?
No, not yet.
I don't.
Never, never.
Motion to deny, right. Kathy?
Polly, second.
I seconded it.
Kathy, did you want to say something? I'm in agreement with the motion to deny. The applications are out there for anyone else to apply, and it will put us back at this table again to make decisions. I think at this time, this town council has spoken with the majority that there is four Class A liquor licenses. So any further discussion before we vote? I think he's all set. Okay, So again, the motion, I don't know if you want to read it back, Dale? Motion to deny.
It was that simple, yeah.
Yeah, the motion is to deny on public hearing, item B.
Okay, we're ready to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Motion carries 410. Could we have a roll call, please, Dale?
Council President Whaley,
I have denied.
Council Vice President McAtee.
Well, I said nay.
Yes, I'm
She
doing
said
a
she
roll-
denied, but, huh?
I know, I didn't.
She
want-
approved, I
I
denied.
approved.
Excuse me?
Yes, I'm a yay.
Okay, Councilwoman Eddy? Aye. Councilwoman Fogarty? Councilman O'Neill?
Aye.
4-1. Approved. Denied.
Thank you, Madam President.
John. She's going to return the license. Yep.
Ella, you need now to go back to
License E.
License E.
and license F.
That's right.
Okay, so we have License E, a resolution granting a Sunday sales license to Village Liquors, LLC, 50 South County Commons Way, Building 6, Unit E1, Wakefield, Rhode Island, subject to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, application by Susan Pagliarini, Principal P.O. Box 1702, East Greenwich, Rhode Island. Do we have a motion?
Ella, I mean, based on your decision earlier, we only have one option.
Yes.
Right,
That would
motion
be to
But I
deny.
still need a motion to deny.
I move we deny
Do we have a second?
license
Second.
E.
And the reason, just for the record, the reason you're denying is because there is no
There is
license.
none.
There is no available license.
Jim, did you want to
Second.
talk at this point? No. Did you want to say anything at this point?
Yeah, Jim, this is your time to say it.
Well, everybody's left, so it won't do any
No,
good.
go
But
Well, yeah, we can hear it.
what I'm concerned about is no one talked about the real benefits tonight. And I'll make this very quick. According to the Division of Taxation, our meals tax, we've been averaging an increase of about 4% a year the last 5 years. Hotel tax, about the same. But I think you heard testimony tonight that these package store, liquor store owners, they are hurting. And I would be hard-pressed to believe that their business has done anything but decrease between 5 and 10% annually the last few years. I don't think there's any doubt about this. None, no doubt whatsoever about this. So unless somebody can go to the Division of Taxation and get the Class A's, and I have tried, but you can't get through to the right people, I would love to be proved differently, but at the moment, I really believe there's enough evidence out there that this just simply is a very difficult business to be in right now, and I just didn't want to compound it.
And I really would like to hold the vote for Carol to come back, with all due respect.
No, we have to.
Can we move?
Thank you, Jim, it was a very good point.
And you know, just to add, you know, just here,
You have the time, go ahead.
Go ahead.
you know, I mean, I did not think about temperance, census,
No.
administrative finality, God, planning board who works hard. I didn't put any of that in the equation. I just put dollars and cents and just try to put reason behind this. And that's why I saw no room for an increase in the number of liquor stores here locally. Nothing else, pure numbers. None of that other stuff. I didn't like the petition, to be honest with everyone. I don't think we needed the petition. And you know, what I wanted to bring up before is, you know, a lot of people don't realize what a difficult job we have up here. I mean, LED signs, this, package stores, liquor stores. And believe me, I'm on Main Street, and I see what the internet has done to small business, see what the Walmarts have done, and we don't have an easy job. You know, we have a comprehensive plan, we have zoning boards, we've got planning boards, and we have to make some tough decisions here to survive and to grow, be part of the 21st century, and it's a tough balancing act. And I just think this was so clear that this business is a decreasing business here, that why I chose the path I did tonight.
That's the reason why I chose that path too, Jim. Okay, so we waited till you got back, Carol.
I'm back.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny because there is not a liquor license. Are we ready to vote? Any further discussion?
We already voted, didn't? We're on, we're,
License,
Sales license, right.
license E, we have to take a vote. All in favor? of
Aye.
denying? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. And then brings us to license F, a resolution granting eviction license to DPTA Holdings, Dragon Palace, Wakefield, Rhode Island, subject to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, application by Peter A. Santilli, member 193 Arcadia Road, Hope Valley. Can we have a
Ellen,
motion?
I'm going to ask that you defer F, actually, because what you need to do is go back to public hearing, item C.
C.
Let's have a vote on whether you're going to grant them that liquor license.
Thank you.
motion to defer F.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Which brings us back to public hearing C.
C.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Oh. We got to
I'm
still vote on
sorry.
C. You have time to, we're going back.
We're in C, public hearing C, Jim.
That's all right.
All right, let's do C. I'm going to make a motion to approve public hearing item B. Is there any verbiage you want us to add?
C.
Excuse me, C.
C.
Sorry, C. Oh, God, C. Absolutely C.
Second.
If if that's the motion, it incorporates the language.
Of the
as
contingent on the
stated
issue-
About contingent upon.
Of the
So
issuance
you're-
of.
You're all
yep.
set then.
Okay. Based on the contingent of standing, a certificate of good standing from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, compliance with all town ordinance and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees and arrears to the town, and the correction of any fire code violations.
We have motion and second.
Second.
Jim, I'm sorry.
And the numbers I just brought up, the meals tax has been, I think, one of the best identities of how well the restaurant business is doing in Rhode Island. It continues to grow, and even in the worst years of our economy over the last 5 years, it's still managed 1% and 2% gains, but all the other years, 5% and 6% gains. And I thought, as Carol said, Matt Callahan did a great presentation tonight, and yes, it's true, we have a lot of Asian, Japanese restaurants, all in close proximity. Someone's going to have to come up with a better mousetrap. That's the way it is. But at least I've got some evidence here that that I can support, and that the State Division of Taxation can support our expanding the licenses in this particular area.
Okay, any further discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Which now brings us back to license F. I've already read it, I'm not going to reread it.
And I will make a motion to approve license item F.
Second?
Motion is second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500.
Boy, where are we now? Communication,
Now-
right? Do we,
Communication B. This is a communication dated November 9th, 2011, from Clay Johnson, Chair, Southern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce, requesting a property tax exemption for their office property on Old Tower Hill Road. Is received, placed on file, and the town council further directs.
We discussed this at the work session, and I move that we accept the letter and continue this communication for the January 23rd meeting.
Second.
I think that we were going to look at the first meeting and look at Kathy's availability, and if that's not January 9th, then we'll move to January 23rd.
yes, yes.
So it could be then either what, the 9th
Be January
or the
9th or the
23rd?
23rd.
Okay, that's right.
To either the first or second meeting in January. How's that?
Good. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have motion and second, further discussion. I'm always going to look this way, Jim.
Yeah.
No, I'm out.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Comments from interested citizens. Mr. Traeger, welcome.
It's been a long night. But I just wanted, something's been on my mind and for a while, and I thought I'd just mention it, take a couple of seconds, I hope, no more. But seeing we've been talking about liquids all evening, what to do with them, and whether to approve drinking them or let people buy them or whatever we did, but I think you did the right thing in the end. But the liquid that I'm thinking about is the one that I just can't understand why no one in the public seems to be that concerned about it, or you don't hear much about it, and that's the price of oil, heating oil, and diesel oil, diesel fuel, and gasoline too. But I think anybody in this room most of us are old enough to remember that heating oil and diesel fuel was always quite a bit cheaper than gasoline, and there's a reason for that. And I know there's a reason that they say there's a reason now that it's 40 to 50% cents more per gallon. But what does it cost the American public to let the oil companies get away with I don't know, it's unbelievable to me. If we need more diesel fuel to fuel the trucks that deliver all the products, to get the products to the American public at a little cheaper price than they are, wouldn't you think that would be the direction that we would go? And then in the east, in the northeast here, so many people heat their homes with oil, and the oil companies are charging us more for oil when it's a cheaper product to produce. And I know the general reason for it, I hear, well, it's supply and demand, and China wants it all. So what does that mean? Well, when China can buy it all, and what are we going to do then? I think that the public's evaluation of our system in Washington, I think I heard the latest figures are like 9% approval and 80-some or 90% disapproval of the way they operate, is something that we should be thinking about a lot, because we've got to do something about this. And I'm glad that these people that have decided, and I wish I had the willpower to join them, that are demonstrating for some change in this country. And it's not just change. The word change is so easy to say. It really is going to take some serious thought to get this thing under control, what's going on here. And people's welfare, everybody's welfare has to be taken into consideration. Anyway, the main point I wanted to make was about the oil. Why doesn't anybody care? I mean, and not to speak of you look at one station, he's 60 cents more than another station. I mean, there should be some kind, talk about controls. I wish you guys could control that one. Good night. You did a great job tonight.
Thank you.
Hi, Bob.
Bob, wait a minute.
Jim?
You don't have to stay, but on new business items, what Andy will announce tonight, some of our new electricity costs because of natural gas and a wonderful contract that's been signed by the town manager for the next 3 years. We'll be saving hundreds of thousands of dollars, which goes back to your question or concern, is why in the world, with such a supply and such value at these prices, why aren't we moving into natural gas more quickly, especially with bus fleets, cabs? I mean, it's starting to, but the problem with New England, as you know, especially Rhode Island, most of these homes in this state have been on oil since their homes were built. And I bring this issue up every time I meet with the school committee. I'm saying, if you just took a look at the costs across the board, including what it costs to heat, it's overwhelming. But here's something right in our new business tonight where we're saving a ton of money because we're using a natural gas end use.
And that's what you guys need to push whenever you can. And on your, I mean, I think the reason's pretty obvious. I mean, I didn't want to get into it. I mean, I know you guys are politicians to some extent, but not the kind of politicians I'm talking about. They're bought. The oil companies own this country. Come on.
Lobbyists do, you're right. You're absolutely right.
A lot of my friends are converting, though, from oil, so people are going to gas. They're biting the bullet now because it's only going to get worse, so I agree. I'm gas, and I'm very happy when I hear what my friends are paying in their oil. It's terrible. Terrible. I agree.
The only comment that I have, if we could pass it on to Mr. Alfred, we do have a request for EDC to have a work session, so when he comes back on Wednesday,
Okay, we'll
we
pass.
can mention that to him.
Yeah, we'll pass that on, get back to you with a couple of options for dates.
Hopefully he's having a wonderful time with his family tonight.
Excuse me, you brought up the EDC. Isn't there a joint meeting between Narragansett and South Kingstown's EDCs? Are town council members involved? What is that all about?
I think they're just looking for a representative from one of them to go the other.
Are you interested?
That's what the letter said.
Well, I'm kind of interested, because didn't Narragansett, or are they in the process of hiring a individual to be their head economic development office, part of the town? A department head. I think that just passed. Andy, did it not?
Yeah,
Or is-
wasn't a department head, it's a private consultant to work, and that was discussed at the evening of the joint session. It was town council had authorized up to a $50,000 allotment for EDC initiatives and/or the hiring of a coordinator of the EDC effort. I think in the interim, that individual has been hired, and I think shortly you're going to start to hear a little bit more about some of their short and long-term objectives and goals that they have her working on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further comments from interested citizens? I'll move on to town manager's report.
I have nothing further tonight.
Town solicitor's report. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, there were no appointments. I think we're all set. Which brings us to new business item C. A resolution authorizing award of bid to Architectural Preservation Group Incorporated, 119 Meadow Street, Warwick, Rhode Island, for chimney cricket roof repairs to the Peacedale office building in accordance with all bid specifications, in an amount not to exceed $12,819, including a $2,000 contingency, and as further described in a memorandum from the Director of Leisure Services to the Town Manager, dated November 14th, 2011, and entitled Bid Recommendation, Peacedale Office Building Chimney Cricket Roof Repairs. Andy?
You have before you tonight a bid recommendation for a series of chimney repairs to the 4 main chimneys of the Peacedale office building. Staff recently noticed a series of interior water leaks that are causing damage in multiple rooms, and with 2 of them leaking, the likelihood is that all 4 of them need some repointing, some reflashing, and potentially some re-roofing in those areas. So the recommendation as presented is for Architectural Preservation Group. Actually, 9 bids were submitted to various companies' bid specifications, but we only had the one particular response. We feel that that pricing is within an appropriate range for the work that needs to be done, so we're seeking approval of the recommendation as presented.
I move approval of new business item C.
Second?
Motion and second, further discussion? Jim?
Yeah, it's absolutely a great asset. I just wanted to ask Andy, is it because of the roof being the slate? Do you think that's why the bid was where it was?
No, we don't think so, Jim. I think it's been just an extended period of time since work has been done. It's an extremely difficult roof, extreme heights that are involved, so that's the reason why I think the pricing came in the way it did, but we think it's in the normal course of repair for a building that's of that age, was built in the early 1900s.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, and the town's done a great job, as we know.
Those buildings, yes.
Those buildings are wonderful, and keep up the good work.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. New business item D, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Hoagland Bus Company, South Highway 25, Monticello, Minnesota, for the purchase of one 2012 Turtle Top Odyssey bus, model OD 94219-11, in accordance with all bid specifications as detailed in the State of Minnesota Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Agreement, in an amount not to exceed $90,255, and is further described in a memorandum from the Director of Leisure Services to the Town Manager, dated November 9th, 2011, and entitled Bid Recommendation, Senior Van. Andy?
This recommendation has been in the works for really in excess of 3 years in our capital improvement program, with various allotments of capital being put aside in the fiscal year 2010, 11, and 12. As noted, the overall, there was $90,000 that was allocated in our capital budget. The existing van is in service on a Monday through Friday basis. Service is really an increasing population, needy population, free of charge. It's a free service to accomplish many tasks in the area. And I think the main task is really to bring people to and from the congregate lunch program that's based at the senior center, as well as making stops on a scheduled basis through various locations in town for necessities, whether it's banking, shopping, and so forth, groceries. The existing bus, and some facts you might be interested in, services probably about 150 active participants, with over 7,000 individual trips having been held this past year. The current vehicle is a 2003 minibus, driven approximately 125,000 miles since it was put into full-time use. In 2004, averages about 1,700 miles per month, and in excess of 20,000 miles per year. The department is seeking to utilize the Rhode Island Public Transit Authority's ride vehicle specifications and utilize the same bid contract for the state of Minnesota's DOT cooperative purchasing venture. RIPTA has used this program very successfully. Staff found that there was very favorable pricing to take advantage of by using that program. It was made available to communities in the Rhode Island. There are several other communities that have taken advantage of it as well. The bus structure itself, the basic specifications that have been provided are very similar to the existing bus that you see, the ride-type turtle-style buses with similar capacity, handicap accessible. One of the other goals of the department is actually, and many times you have vehicle purchases that are recommended for trade-in. The goal here is, due to such high demand, not only with the existing senior program, but also with our adult day program, is to invest some minimal dollars to be able to maintain the existing bus as a backup. So in the past year or so, with maintenance costs increasing and the number of times the bus has been out of service, service was interrupted, which can be very difficult with changes being made. We were at some points transporting residents to and from the senior center in town vehicles, and that's something that we'd prefer not to do based on the condition of many of the residents who need that handicapped accessible component. So the recommendation as presented by the Leisure Services Department is for the Hoagland Bus Company for $90,250 as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve new business item D.
Second?
We have motion and second. Further discussion? Jim?
Andy, would you let a lot of the folks know just the fact that there is no cost to the individuals using this service? Just maybe cover that quickly, if you would.
Yeah, that's correct. Karen Turcott, a senior senior center director, all you need to do is call the transportation office at the center. They'll provide you with all of the scheduling. They'll get you on the list. And there's a lot of, as you can imagine, a lot of coordination that goes on in a community of this size as to who gets picked up first and so forth, whether it's the lunch program, and there are multiple trips made for that at times, or other shopping or other excursions to other events in the area. So it's all free to residents of South Kingstown, so all they need to do is call the center to get more information.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. New business item E, a resolution authorizing award of contract to Costco Incorporated, 707 Park East Drive, Woonsocket, Rhode Island, in accordance with the Rhode Island Department of Transportation statewide guardrail replacement and repair contract number 2011-CM-013. Guardrail unit pricing as further described in a memorandum from the Public Services Director to the Town Manager dated November 14th, 2011, and entitled Dugway Bridge Approach Guardrail and Miscellaneous Guardrail Projects.
This particular item targets a series of guardrail replacements. Some of the smaller replacements in town are on Waits Quarter Road, Culvert, the Highland Avenue, and Wright Avenue for various amounts. Fairly large drop-offs from the roadway. There's existing wooden railings that are there that are deteriorated, and this was viewed as an opportunity by staff to take in one particular bid item to secure the appropriate replacement for all of those areas. I held off on really the main one, which is really the most exciting element of this particular bid item, is relative to Dugway Bridge. We have some news, and we hope to have from the contractor, Riley Construction, who's been working on the bridge over the past couple of months. They are within days of having the main bridge structure completed. South County steel, actually installed the steel. The bridge is pretty much just about finished. The bridge was closed, I mean, time travels. Bridge was closed back in January 24th. The wooden bridge and structure was removed on the 23rd of March. Since then, Resource Controls had been hired in May 2011 to reaffirm the original bridge design. And as the months continued until the contract was finally awarded, a bid on September 12th to South County Steel, that work was finished by the end of October 31st. And just after that, the timber decking, guardrail walls, and handrail construction was moving forward with Riley Construction. We think the timetable, working with the Public Services Department and Engineering, has been terrific. The coordination there to have the project finished in such a timely fashion in meeting budget. The overall estimated cost, although the project is still in works, is estimated to come in somewhere between $110,000 and $115,000 from beginning to end. Costco, as soon as Riley finishes the project this week, Costco will come in and will really do some of the major work in terms of the restructuring and the redesign of both approaches. The existing guardrail will be removed. There's a new configuration which will provide for 90-degree turns on each side, thus limiting the overall size of the vehicles that can actually utilize the bridge. So our goal, with an approval here tonight of the existing recommendation, bid recommendation, would be to have that project finished, again, working around weather and other obstacles by the end of December, to have that bridge back open for public use. So the recommendation is for bid award to Costco Incorporated, and the recommendation is as presented.
Move approval then of new business resolution E.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. New business item F, a resolution authorizing the police chief to enter into a 72-month lease-to-own agreement with 3M Cogent Incorporated, 5450 France Road, Suite 250, Dublin, Ohio, for a live scan booking workstation complete with an FBI certified printer at a cost of $600 per month for a total cost of $43,200, and as further described in a memorandum from the police chief to the town manager dated November 18th, 2011, and entitled Live Scan Electronic Fingerprinting System Replacement.
As noted in the chief's recommendation, you have before you a bid recommendation for a 72-month lease-to-own agreement for the replacement of the live scan electronic fingerprinting system at a cost of $600 per month for a total cost of $43,200. The existing system that's in place, which is similar to the recommended system, has been in place since 2005, although the department has started to see wear and tear on the system due to its overall use. It's in use 24/7. By the entire department. We're starting to see the degradation of the fingerprints that actually are generated by the machine. So Jim McGill, the network administrator, presented the chief with a recommendation to, at this particular time, it was appropriate to go for a complete replacement of the existing system. Since 2000, when the department first began to use the live scan electronic fingerprinting equipment, the funding has been supported with non-tax dollars. It's actually been supported through a Burn JAG grant through the Public Safety Grant Administration. The department is recommending that continue to be the funding source. They have some funding available to fund the first 13 months of the 72-month grant, and they are optimistic that and have received signs that there will be additional grant dollars to come to fund the remaining portion of the grant.
I move approval of new business item F.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. New business item G, a resolution authorizing the renewal of annual software support fees with Information Management Corporation, 13 Centennial Drive, North Grafton, Massachusetts, in an amount not to exceed $17,455, as further described in a memorandum from the police chief to the town manager dated November 21st, 2011, and entitled IMC Computer Annual Support Fees, Recommendation for Renewal.
As noted in the chief's recommendation, this is just really a renewal of annual computer support services through IMC. Also, as noted, which I thought was very interesting, is that staff of the police department have actively put together a group of, there are actually 38 communities in Rhode Island that are serviced by IMC and have this system up and running. They've actually leveraged the percentage of use in Rhode Island to their benefit in terms of negotiating with the new owner of IMC to mitigate any future cost increases. The overall recommendation, this particular item, software package, actually supports not only police efforts, but also EMS as well. The bid recommendation is broken down into two parts, with police being $11,415, EMS at $1,830, and there are some additional Rhode Island Public Safety Grant Administration grant dollars available of just over $4,200 to assist in this one-year agreement. It's a calendar year from January through December 2012, and this would have to be, again, it's renewed on an annual basis, so the cost associated with this particular bid recommendation at $17,455 is just good for the one calendar year, and then we should expect another recommendation from the chief next fall.
I move approval of new business item G.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. New business item H, a resolution authorizing the submittal of an application to the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management for funding through the Recreational Acquisition and Development Grant Program for the purpose of improving Broad Rock playfields and dog park, and is further described in a memorandum from the Director of Leisure Services to the Town Manager dated November 21st, 2011, and entitled Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management Application.
Great. I asked Terry to come up. The department has been working very closely with Rhode Island DEM and the Open Space Recreation Development Grants. The department's been very successful over the years, having secured some of the larger grants of $300,000 for the Saugatucket River improvements, $150,000 for the Village Green improvements, and in a series of smaller grants over the years. This particular grant is targeting improvements at Broad Rock, so I asked Terry to come up and explain a little bit more about this particular grant application.
Thank you, Andy. I'll be very brief, and this should be an easy decision, I'm hoping. Yes, the department is seeking to submit a grant application to Rhode Island DEM to help support a project at Broad Rock Playfields, which consists of several elements, all of which are part of the current capital plan. And as I indicated in my memo to the town manager, the elements consist of the Broad Rock dugout structures at the three fields at Broad Rock Playfields. It's Little League, softball, and a Babe Ruth baseball field, all of which have dugout areas but no roof structure over them. So part of this application will include funding to assist with the construction of dugout roofing structures. Also involved in this project is construction of retaining walls adjacent to the softball field, which, if you're familiar with it, it slopes downward, and as indicated in the current year's capital budget pay-as-you-go program, the department was seeking funding authorization in order to construct a retaining wall in order to protect that walkway up above the field. That also comes with railing, safety railing along the walkway. Additionally, we are looking to install a staircase that leads from the parking lot down to the dog park. Again, this was part of the capital improvement program for 2011-2012. We're looking to install that on the slope to make much safer, easier access down to the dog park. Also, another element of the program is the dog park water line and drinking fountain. This is not part of the capital program, but it is part of a grant-funded project through Friends of South Kingstown Parks and Recreation and the South Kingstown Dog Park Association. They were able to secure a grant in the amount of about $4,600 to help fund that particular feature, looking to extend a water line from the existing concession and restroom facility down to the dog park and install a water fountain at that location as well. So all in all, the project really is geared towards user safety and well-being, and it is in a total amount of $102,000, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to submit this grant with your support and authorization in order to help fund these improvements.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I move approval of new business item H.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Thank you, Terry, for all that work. And new business, item I. This is a resolution affirming an award of contract executed by the town manager on November 17th, 2011, with Direct Energy Business, 1001 Liberty Center, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, for the purchase of electricity at the rate of 6.718 cents per kilowatt under the Rhode Island Energy Aggregate Program as a participating member of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns for the period December 1st, 2011 to November 30th, 2014. And is further described in a memorandum from the town manager to the town council dated November 23rd, 2011, and entitled Electricity Supply Purchase.
As noted in the town manager's memorandum to the council, the manager's office was able to secure an agreement with Direct Energy on November 17th of this month. And in that negotiation, they accepted a rate, a fixed rate for the next 3 years of 6.178 cents per kilowatt hour. To put that in context, the prior 3-year contract, the average rate per kilowatt hour was approximately 9.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Overall, the town's electricity usage is approximately 3.6 million kilowatts. Over that 3-year period from 2008 to 2011, that overall cost was just over $1 million. What that translates to with the reduction to 6.7 cents is a savings of over $300,000 from the prior 3-year agreement. Just recently, and actually just after the manager finished negotiating that contract, Direct Energy came out with their standard pricing for other communities that are involved in the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns REAP program. That rate was set at 7.381 cents. So if in fact the contract had not been secured at the time that it was, we would have lost out on just over another $70,000 in savings over that 3-year period. The existing program, the Rhode Island Leagues of Cities and Towns has offered, goes back as far as 2004. The town has always been involved in the program since its inception. Approximately 34 communities in Rhode Island take advantage of really leveraging buying power, and that's one of the main reasons why we're able to secure pricing at such low rates that we have. Another key factor is the time of day of use of the purchased electricity. So comprehensive study was conducted relative to when peak usage was in some of the town facilities, and that also was leveraged in the negotiation to secure the price at the rate that we have. This agreement has been reached, so with the council's reaffirmation of that agreement, we'll be able to go forward and have these rates implemented as soon as possible.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move approval of new business item I.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Thank you, Andy. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Meeting adjourned at 11 o'clock.